Have you ever noticed that suffering sometimes comes not just from bad things happening, but from the moment we struggle against what is unfolding right in front of us, as if you just strain a little more, the wind would put things back where they were, time would reverse, and what is slipping out of your hands would freeze mid-air. And if you have ever woken in the middle of the night, your chest heavy as though someone placed a stone on it, grabbing at your phone like it is a life raft, scrolling through faces that smile so you can forget the wave rising inside you, then turning the screen off only to find the wave still fully there, if so, then the story I am about to tell is for you. It begins very small, so small that if you miss even half a beat, you will pass it by. A sick little bird in an old bamboo cage. Patches of feathers sticking out like streaks of rain not yet dried. Its eyes still open but looking right through everything. And a small novice monk trying to do the thing we have all tried. Save what he loves by any means he can. He puts out warm water. He crushes seeds so they are easier to swallow. He sits close and murmurs a few lines of sutra he has memorized. He gently removes a feather stuck in a cage bar as though pulling that feather might pull back the illness a bit. He blames himself when the bird does not eat. He counts each breath as though they are counting time in his own life. And among those efforts, a question suddenly appears uninvited. Why the more I try, the more it hurts. If you have ever tended to a relationship that is already cracked and still said it is okay, held on to a job that is already burned out and still said it is okay, carried a habit that already wears you thin and still said it is okay, then you will hear this question clearly, whispered like someone speaking right beside your ear. Why do all my good efforts fail to save me from suffering? Maybe you tried many ways. Change your diet. Download a meditation app. Read a few healing books. Write down things you are grateful for. Set your alarm to sleep earlier. Give yourself a short trip. Open a new goal to stay busy to forget. But then one peaceful day, when nothing special has happened, the weight on your chest returns. You realize the problem is not that you are missing another tip, another step, another tool. The problem is you are missing something very different, a way of seeing. And this story of the sick bird does not promise your life will stop raining. It only shows you how a tree can stand still even when the rain never ends. Imagine everything you are terrified of losing: your health, someone you love, an image of yourself, a plan you have laid out, is a small living being in a fragile cage you carry with you. You water them, you place your time on them, you place your sleep, place your self-respect, place even hope on them. And then one day, one creature begins to weaken. Your first response is the one we always do: more effort, more control, more, must get better, more, must not break, more, cannot lose. And it is there, at that point of adding, that suffering multiplies. The Buddha once pointed to something simple that we tend to go all the way around only to come back to. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life. The second arrow we shoot ourselves when we refuse to let the first arrow exist. The story of the sick bird is a small mirror so you can see the second arrow in your own hand. And the secret to ending suffering is not a magic trick to make the first arrow disappear, but learning to lower the bow before shooting the second arrow. In the next few minutes, I will take you through the garden where the cage sits under the bamboo shade, through the novice's eyes as he believes it is his responsibility to preserve life by will alone, through the teacher's voice when he does not give hollow comfort but shows him a very small door right within reality. If you come with me to the end, you will carry away 3 things you can apply starting tonight. A way to name suffering by its true nature so it no longer disguises to terrify you. A simple ritual of breath and release to loosen the knot the moment the heart constricts. And a very small promise you can make to yourself so you do not stray so far ever again. You do not need to believe me right now. Only for now lay down what you think you already know about acceptance, for acceptance is not giving up. It is not letting go in apathy. It is not doing nothing. It is the most courageous act of a mind that wants to live truly. When you understand how a bird can be sick and still be a bird, how a heart can suffer loss and still be a heart, you will see that what we call ending suffering is not a glorious destination at the end of the road, but a skill you can train right here, in the room you are sitting in, among the most familiar sounds. So, if you are ready, I invite you to place your feet firmly on the floor, drop your shoulders a little, exhale longer than usual by half a beat, and walk with me through a very small story about a sick bird, a story small enough to slip past reason's defenses, close enough to touch where suffering is born, and strong enough to open just a crack of the door you have been knocking on all this time. That dawn came very slowly, as though the sun was also groping along a stony path in the throat. Dew still lingered on rows of banana leaves like specks of light still wet. The sound of the temple's bell murmured from the main hall, blending with water dripping off the eaves. And on the brick courtyard, now moss-covered, an old bamboo cage sat on a low wood bench. Inside it a bird had drawn itself together in the middle, feathers fluffed lightly like a small cloud, its eyes open but as though looking through everything. The novice sat close by, his hands resting on his knees as if holding a full cup just about to spill. He tilted it too far and it might, and the teacher stood a little back, his shadow stretching across the steps, long like a quiet stroke of stillness. The novice whispered, "Dear one," as if calling a child, then changed the water, set out smashed millet, carefully turned the perch so the weak feet would not have to reach too far. And when the bird did not touch the food, he put his hand into the cage, stopped halfway out of fear of frightening it, withdrew, then reached again, like a breath caught. He thought of past rescues, a butterfly caught in a spider web, a young lizard fallen into a gutter, and in those successes was an unspoken promise: if I try hard enough, everything will get better. A beautiful promise which now has grown heavy. The teacher watched how he sat, watched how his shoulders rose then fell each time the bird trembled, and spoke very softly as though afraid of breaking a thin thread. "You are doing all you can. The rest belongs to another current." In the days after, he made a small schedule in his mind like a novice just apprenticed. Morning warm water changes, midday seed crushing, afternoon gentle sun, evening cover the cage so the night wind does not creep in. He recites a few lines of sutra he has memorized, not to ask for some blazing miracle, but as a way to reset the beat of his heart. He removes a feather caught in a cage bar and senses a nameless thread of hope, as though order has been aligned just a little. But on the third afternoon, the bird's breaths grow thinner. On the fourth evening its head tilts further to one side. By the fifth morning it no longer tries to hop to the perch. He begins to speak to himself in imperatives. Be stronger. Care more. Find some other way. And that at first felt like a grain of sand in the shoe suddenly becomes a pebble that hurts with every step. The teacher does not rush to intervene between him and the bird. He only lifts a finger to tap the cage frame as a carpenter taps wood to hear what lies within. Then says to him to place both hands on the cage. Do nothing else, just to feel the warmth from his hands seeping through the bamboo. The little tremor of life inside. To care is to tend what is warm, still, clean. To control is to force it to be your way. The teacher says, when you slide from caring into controlling, suffering overflows. One noon, the wind rises, banana leaves slap together like clapping. Inside the cage the bird draws shallow breath, its eyes half closed as if listening to music far away. He trembles with helplessness. Startled he turns to the teacher. I have done everything and yet it is still like this. The teacher sets a stool beside him. Does not comfort with floating promises of, everything will be okay. He tells a very short story. When I was 12, I asked my foster father for a little dog. It followed me everywhere. When the rains came it fell ill. I stayed up through the night changing its water, keeping it warm, reciting sutra, and in the morning it died. That morning I learned something you can only learn through tears. There is an arrow life always carries, birth, aging, illness, death, and there is an arrow we shoot ourselves. This should not be like this. The first arrow pierces everyone and it hurts. The second arrow. If you lower the bow, you do not need to shoot yourself again. He listens and reacts as every young heart does. But if I lower the bow, is that not giving up? The teacher shakes his head. No, it is a shift in direction of effort. From trying to grasp what cannot be held, to caring for what can be cared for. From struggling with reality, to cooperating with it. As the afternoon deepened, the sunlight retreated slowly toward the base of the wall. The brick courtyard split into two worlds, warm and cool, and right on that narrow border. The bird took one breath longer than all the breaths before it, then went still. Time suddenly turned silent, as if someone had reached into your head and turned down the volume on a radio. The first feeling was not tears, but a hollow space, empty. Like someone had just lifted something from your palm that had been resting there for a long time. Then the tears came, not loud, just warm and salty, falling onto his brown robe. He said, "I am sorry," to a living being that could no longer hear. The way people always apologize too late. The teacher stood up and motioned for him to follow, circling around to the back garden, where a pink bougainvillea branch drooped after the wind. He pointed at a fallen petal, at a leaf bitten through by worms, at a green mango that had dropped early from the tree, and said, "Impermanence is not a concept to memorize for a test. It is something that happens every minute. When we try to bargain with impermanence, suffering arises. When we acknowledge it, suffering begins to dissolve." They returned to the courtyard. The teacher handed him a small shovel, not to teach ritual, but to let him use his body to connect with the earth. They chose a bamboo root, dug a hole just big enough, placed the bird in it, covered it with soil. Each layer of earth was a layer of exhale. The teacher reminded him, thank it, not because it stayed, but because it passed through your life and taught you something. To love does not always mean to hold. To let go does not always mean to abandon. That night, he did not go straight into the main hall but stayed on the porch, wiping down the bamboo cage like cleaning a tool that would be used again, because life would surely bring another fragile being needing shelter. As his fingers touched the thin bamboo slats, he could hear more clearly a voice that almost had no words. Care. But do not cling. He tried, for the first time, a practice the teacher had just taught him. So simple it barely felt like a practice. Sit just upright enough. Exhale longer than usual by half a beat, and name the emotion with one plain word, sad. Not too sad. Not, why am I sad? Just, sad. And when he labeled it correctly, the sadness shifted from a formless fog squeezing his chest to a named object resting quietly in his hands. He continued, placing a hand over the part of the body that was holding tight, his upper chest now slightly rigid. He relaxed his shoulders and felt the small warmth of his palm. Then he asked the one question the teacher insisted must be asked word for word, right now. What am I wishing were different? He answered honestly, that the bird were alive, that time could rewind, that he had been better. He acknowledged the wish as one would acknowledge a crying child, not scolding it, not soothing it with false hope. Finally, like tying a small thread around his wrist, he made a promise to himself that he could keep starting tonight, without waiting for the world to change. Each time my chest tightens, I will exhale slowly and name the emotion. It was not a promise to end sadness. It was only a promise to return. The next morning, daily tasks resumed as usual, fetching buckets of water, sweeping the courtyard, carrying trays of food to the monks' dining hall. A visiting pilgrim asked him, "Where is the little bird?" And he replied, "It has gone. I thank it." And for the first time, "I thank it" was not just polite, it was true. During his teaching session, the teacher shared a short story with the Sangha. He did not mention the novice's name, nor the bird, nor the cage. He simply offered examples. A mother reaching out her hand when her child wants to stay at school 1 hour longer. An adult child caring for a sick father who wishes for just one more year. A person recovering from illness who wants the body to heal faster. He said, in each of these, it is crucial to distinguish between three circles. The circle of control, concrete actions like medicine, scheduling a doctor, a nutritious meal, an hour of rest. The circle of influence, speaking honestly and clearly, creating favorable conditions, asking for help, and the circle of no control, the unfolding of impermanence. The heaviest suffering appears when we push all our energy from the first circle into trying to drag the third. The skill of ending suffering, strangely enough, begins by standing in the right place, tending the first circle like a gardener tends to roots, nurturing the second like building a trellis for vines, and finally, bowing to the third like one who accepts the season. From the small cage and the little grave beneath the bamboo root, the story opens to other truths beyond the temple gate. Everyone is carrying their own sick little bird, a relationship long tired but warm with memories, a role at work that once fit but now feels too tight, a self-image of always being strong, always being capable, that we have worn for too long. We tend to them, conversations, asking for help, learning, resting, but then we cross into control. It must return to how it was. I must be promoted this year. I must not be weak. And right at that crossing, the second arrow launches from the string. Ending suffering is not about erasing the first arrow, but learning to recognize the moment the bowstring tightens in the heart, and putting the bow down. That might sound like philosophy, but it is deeply physical. Exhaling longer by half a beat when your heart starts to race. Saying one short sentence of truth instead of adding a whole paragraph of should not have been. Moving your hand off the phone and placing it over your chest. Reminding yourself, care, not control. Asking, which circle does this belong to? And if the answer is circle 3, you bow not out of defeat, but because you choose to stand where love does not cost you your whole self. Someone might ask, if I accept, will that make me passive? The teacher once answered like this: acceptance is the ground for accurate action. When we stop exhausting ourselves fighting what cannot be changed, we free energy for what can be. The adult child who accepts the father's illness does not stop caring, but focuses on what matters: an afternoon walk while his legs still move, preparing his medical files so care can proceed smoothly. The mother who accepts her child will grow and let go does not turn cold, but teaches the child how to take care of themselves. Prepares dinner with less salt for her own heart. The person recovering from illness who accepts slow progress does not stop training, but trains steadily, 15 minutes a day. And will be surprised to find that next month, the body goes farther than all past forceful efforts. Acceptance is like placing your foot firmly on the step you actually stand on. Only from there can you take the next. Not by leaping to the rooftop of where you wish to be. And now, if you are still listening, perhaps some image of a cage has begun to rise in you. A dream, a person, a situation. Tonight, you can try what the novice tried that night. Sit where you are. Dim the lights to give your eyes a break. Exhale longer than usual, like placing something heavy down onto the ground. And name the feeling with one plain word. Ask yourself, right now, what am I wishing were different? And look directly into that wish as you would into the eyes of a crying child. Look. Do not silence it. Do not explain it away. Then say one small promise with a schedule. Each time my chest tightens, I will exhale slowly and name the emotion. Or, before sending an emotional message, I will place my hand on my chest for 3 breaths. Do it over and over, like sweeping a narrow path through a messy courtyard, just wide enough for both feet to walk. One day, you will see suffering does not vanish like steam, but it splits into 2 layers. One is the real pain of life. The other is the long paragraph we write on top with, should not have happened. And when that second layer begins to thin out, life feels lighter. The story of the sick little bird does not hand us a magic spell. It gives us a pair of glasses. Put them on, And you begin to see the fine line between love and attachment, between care and control, between action and struggle. And in that moment, the phrase, "suffering ends when acceptance begins," stops being a pretty slogan on the wall. It becomes a living practice. Breathe, name, make a small promise, repeat. You do not have to wait for sunrise in a temple courtyard to begin. You can start right now, while traffic still hums on the street below, while emails keep coming, while your child is asking for one more storybook. Stillness is not the absence of sound. It is a place inside you that you know how to return to. And once you know the way, every time you get lost, it is just a short walk back. If this story touched something in you, if you have recognized your own sick little bird and want to learn how to care without clinging, to let go without abandoning, I invite you to stay with this channel for more stories to come. Tiny pieces of reflection that can still create a breathing space inside a busy life. You can leave one short line about where you see the second arrow in yourself. Just one line is enough for someone else to realize they're not alone. And if this was helpful, please hit subscribe and turn on the bell, so that each week, when a new story is shared, you can step into the narrow, clean path we have swept, 2 feet wide, one long breath deep, and a heart brave enough to say yes to what is already here. The morning after the burial, the teacher did not speak of the bird again. He simply asked the novice to bring a basin of water out to the porch, then went into the kitchen and returned with a small handful of warm ash. He dropped the ash into the water. The gray dust immediately spread out like a faint cloud. The novice, on instinct, reached for a stick to stir, trying to help the water become clear. The more he stirred, the murkier it became, and just as his hand began to tire, the teacher gently stopped his wrist, placed the stick down, and they both sat silently, watching. After a few moments, the ash began to settle, like an anger that had finally been named. The teacher did not lecture. He just said, softly and clearly, "When you stop stirring, the water knows how to clear itself." Acceptance is not letting the ash go wherever it wants. It is stopping the act that makes what is already muddy even more clouded. From that moment on, every time something did not go his way, the novice would suddenly remember the exact feeling of putting the stick down, half in the hand, half in the heart, and he began to realize, how many times had I stirred not because I needed to, but because I was afraid that standing still would hurt more. The temple gate opens, and life is waiting with bigger versions of the same cage. A woman working at the small clinic downtown brings her mother in for tests. The results are not good. She wants to pull time backward, wants to sign a paper that changes the words on the diagnosis, wants to cover her mother's eyes with gentle lies like, "It will be okay." At night, she sends long messages to her partner, each one a way to stir the water so she will not have to see the bottom. The teacher meets her at the gate. He does not speak in philosophy. He only asks what she ate last night and how many hours she slept. She gives a tired smile and says she cannot remember. He invites her to sit under the almond tree, tells her to try retelling the situation not using words like should have, but with words like what is. She stumbles for a while, then suddenly begins to cry when forced to strip away the makeup of language, until only one sentence remains. "My mother is sick. And I am scared." That is all. From that honest place, they shape one day of care using the 3-circle method. In the morning, a 10-minute walk while her mother still has strength. At noon, ask the doctor one clear question and no more. In the afternoon, cook a soft meal and call her brother to share the care. That evening, when the fear returns, she places a hand on her chest, exhales longer than usual by half a beat, and whispers, "Scared," giving fear a seat. A week later, her mother is still sick, but the woman's eyes have become clear, not because the ash disappeared, but because she has stirred less. In a cramped apartment in another city, a young man sits staring at the empty chair across the table, where someone he loved no longer sits. The habit of swiping through old photos mirrors the act of stirring water with metal. The more he stirs, the clearer the image, the murkier the heart. His friends say, just delete them. Go out, download a new app. He tries them all and realizes he is just spinning the stick faster. One night, he comes across this story in a video a friend is watching. When it reaches the part about putting the stick down, he turns off the screen, writes a long letter to his ex that he will never send. Each line is a way to name the wish for something different sitting in his chest, to be chosen again, to be less misunderstood, to hear one final apology. Once the wishes have names, he folds the letter, steps out onto his balcony, exhales deeply, touches his chest like marking a doorway, and adds one tiny promise. For the next 7 nights, before texting anyone past midnight, I will walk for 5 minutes, feel my shoes hit the ground to remind my heart that there is something beneath me. The sadness does not disappear, but it drops the phrase, this should not have happened, and that letting go is enough to make tomorrow pass. Somewhere else, a woman in her 30s walks into work every day at a company where just arriving at the gate makes her stomach twist. She has told herself, just one more quarter, for 6 quarters now. Each KPI report is another cage on her desk, every email a bamboo slat tightening in. She visits the temple one quiet weekend and asks the teacher whether acceptance is the same as resignation. The teacher tells her a story about a gardener. When the season has passed and the old leaves fall, the gardener does not tape the leaves back on. The gardener does 3 things: prunes the right parts, feeds the roots, and chooses the right light. He looks at her calendar, crosses out the unnecessary meetings like plucking feathers stuck in cage bars. They keep 2 deep work sessions, 1 screen-free rest period, and set a small deadline. Write 1 direct letter to her manager about her workload. The first week is not dreamy. The manager does not change overnight, but for the first time in months, she sleeps a full night. 3 weeks later, she submits a request to transfer teams, not a desperate or defiant letter, but a clear one, showing her strengths and what she needs. Acceptance here does not mean staying forever. It means stopping the fight with the truth that this place is draining me, so that her actions can be more accurate, shift, or if not, then plan to move on. The water did not clear because the tank was replaced, but because her hands had left the stick still long enough to see the bottom, not a match. And a final story of the body. Someone fresh out of surgery, whose body now speaks in flickers of pain like dim warning lights. They used to be young, strong, high-performing, so their first reflex is to declare, I will be back to normal in 4 weeks. And every day they fall short becomes a second arrow. The doctor says, go slow, and they hear it like an insult. Until one morning, while lacing their shoes, a sharp pain reminds them that the body, too, is a living being, one that must be cared for, not commanded. They try the teacher's suggestion. Shift the goal from outcome to rhythm. From run 2 miles to 15 minutes of steady steps with long breaths. From return to normal to listen to what my body says today. 4 weeks pass with no celebratory photo, but with a new habit strong enough to carry them farther than any old sprint. Each day, touch the ground, listen to the body, and put the stick down when the mind tries to stir more fear. As for the novice, he goes about his daily routines now just a little differently, as if he has simply switched which hand holds the broom. When he carries water across the porch, he does not rush to make it in time. He places each step firmly enough so the water stays still. When clearing bowls after meals, he does not try to stack them all in one go as a trick to save effort. He makes 2 trips. Each trip is a kind of breath. By the 3rd week, a small coincidence happens. A neighborhood child brings over a baby sparrow that has fallen from its nest. Its back muddy, claws trembling. Is there a place for it here? The child asks. The novice looks at the bamboo cage he cleaned that day so long ago. A chill runs down his spine. like an old shadow returning. But he smiles gently, a smile he did not have the last time, bends down and takes the bird. His heart does not rise up with the vow, "This time, I must save it at all costs." It simply says, "This time, I will care." He places a soft cloth, drips a few drops of water, sets the cage where the sun touches just right, and tells the new bird the story of the one that came before, as a way of saying thank you to the one who showed him the path. A few days later, the sparrow hops up onto the perch. The novice opens the cage door, offers his hand. The bird stands on his finger for a moment, as if to ask, "Are you sure?" Then flies off toward the bamboo canopy. He watches it go. His chest does not clench. He feels no regret. Only a breeze moves gently through him. He walks back inside, hand brushing the bamboo bars, feeling the smooth grain of the wood beneath his skin. He knows now. He does not need the empty cage as a shrine of sorrow. He needs it as a tool, ready to care for the next fragile thing life might bring. Love is no longer a form of guarding. It has become a skill with a schedule. You might be sitting at your desk right now, traffic still buzzing outside, notifications still popping up on your phone, and thinking, "How can I bring that kind of peace into this?" The answer is no further than a simple action. Choose something that is making your heart feel murky, a reply you have not sent, a message you are scared to open, a bill you are avoiding, and move it into Circle 1 with a concrete step you can take now. It could be writing 3 fact-based lines with no judgment, sending a quick message like, "I will reply in detail today at 4 p.m., or scheduling 10 minutes to check your account. Then, when your chest tightens, exhale longer than usual by half a beat. Name the emotion with one plain word, and place a hand where the tension lives in your body. This is not some sacred ritual. It is the gesture of a gardener. If done regularly, the water will clear, not because you are brilliant, but because you have stopped stirring. And on the days when the thing you fear most actually happens, a door closes, a result comes back bad. Remember this. The end of suffering does not mean the end of pain. It means separating the pain from the layer of, "This should not have happened," we stack on top of it. When that layer thins, you still feel sad, but the sadness becomes a flavor in your meal. No longer a pot that boils over. By the end of the story, the temple courtyard is once again bathed in sunlight like any other day. The novice's broom sweeps a very narrow path from the gate to the porch, just wide enough for 2 feet to walk, so others will step in less mud. The teacher stands at the doorway, watches him for a moment, then asks, "How do you feel today?" And without needing to think, the novice answers, "Everything feels the same, but I feel a little different." That change is not like a thunderclap. It is more like realizing you can set something heavy on the ground before speaking, that you can exhale longer before replying, that you can write one small promise at night instead of writing a contract with fate. And from those ordinary moves, one secret becomes less secret. Real suffering begins to retreat when acceptance begins to show up. Suffering ends when acceptance begins is not just a pretty quote on your phone wallpaper. It is a way of using your hands, your breath, your words, every day. If you want, tonight when you turn off the lights, sit still for a moment. Place a hand on your chest. Name what feels heavy. Breathe out. Make one small promise and sleep, so that tomorrow morning, you can care for your fragile things with a heart that stirs less. And one day, when life brings you another sick bird, a project, a relationship, a part of your own body, you will not rush to declare, "I will save it at all costs." You will smile and say, "I will care for what is mine to care for." And the rest, you will stand still long enough to see that it belongs to a current larger than you. And it is exactly in that stillness that the root of suffering loses its grip. To make sure this lesson does not remain only on a temple courtyard with a bamboo cage, we need to carry it out into fluorescent lit hallways, overflowing inboxes, and those quiet evenings where an ache in your chest refuses to be filled. Right there, in the dry, ordinary places of life, the practice of caring without clinging must appear in tiny, simple, doable gestures. The image of ash in a basin is enough to give you one short phrase: put the stick down. But putting it down does not mean doing nothing. It means changing the quality of your action, from frantic to precise, from arguing with reality to cooperating with it. And once the quality shifts, the three core actions line up on their own. Exhale longer by half a beat so your diaphragm tells your brain nothing is on fire. Name the rising emotion with a plain word so the fog turns into a form you can hold. Speak one small promise tied to a specific time so your energy returns to a circle you actually control. These 3 moves, done daily for just 7 days, will become reflexes, like your hand reaching for a light switch when you walk into a dark room. Your fingers will touch the switch before your brain even finishes the thought. Now imagine one morning you wake up and know today holds a hard meeting. Its name sits in your calendar like a stone. Try the practice right at the edge of your bed. No bells, no gongs, just a pause wide enough for one breath. Place both feet on the floor so your body knows it has something to stand on. Exhale longer than usual by half a beat, like setting a heavy box down at a train station. And say one small word: nervous. Then ask yourself the question you promised to ask right now. What am I wishing were different? The answer usually bubbles up like foam. I wish the other person were kinder. I wish I would not be put on the spot. I wish the meeting would reschedule itself. Nod to that wish like nodding to a child at the door, not making promises, not turning them away. Then build a small bridge from dream to action. Write down 3 bullet points for the meeting. Print a 1-page summary, and set a reminder to breathe out before speaking for the first time. Maybe someone still says something that makes you flush. Maybe a face still frowns. But you have shifted your posture from "please let nothing go wrong" to "whatever happens, here is what I will do." The meeting ends. The water is not yet clear, but you have stopped stirring wildly, and somehow, that alone is enough to make the pipes inside you less clogged. There are pains deeper and longer than any meeting, like the hollowness of loss when someone you love is no longer here. The kind of pain that makes every self-help trick feel ridiculous. Here, the practice is not about replacing the emotion with something positive. It is about giving the emotion a chair. If it has a seat, it does not need to shout. You can create a small ritual, like the one the teacher and novice did with the tiny grave. Choose a corner of your home as a temporary altar. Place one object of memory, a spoon, a scarf, a card. Each evening, light a small candle. Speak one sentence of remembering and one of gratitude. And breathe out longer than usual. Once a week, write a letter you will not send. Name 3 things you wish were different. One more day, one more conversation, one sign that they are okay. Place the letter in a box. Over time, the box grows, not as a pile of grief, but as proof that you gave yourself permission to love without firing the second arrow. The tears will still come, wave by wave, but now that they have a place to go, they do not flood the banks. In the opposite direction, some suffering does not come from loss but from overloaded goals, overloaded expectations, an overloaded image of who I should be. If you are on that path, try looking at your calendar the way the teacher looked at the bamboo cage. Some slats are extra. They just make it harder to breathe. One evening, sit down, exhale, and write out every commitment you are carrying. Draw a line down the page to make 3 columns: care, influence, and cannot control. Go through each one, push it into the right circle. A mandatory birthday for a friend you have grown distant from? Maybe it belongs in influence. You speak honestly and send a simple gift instead of showing up. A certificate you are chasing only because others have it? Cannot control. That is social pressure, not your need right now. An hour of exercise to soothe a hurting back? Care. That is tending your roots. Just 1 hour of reorganizing. And the next day you might notice the sky still exists. Restlessness will creep in, whispering, "If you skip this, you will fall behind." Place your hand on your chest. Exhale, whisper, "Afraid." Let it sit. Then return to the care column and do your part. A few weeks later, you may realize your will to live never left. Only the pressure to prove did. Many people fear acceptance because they confuse it with avoidance. But avoidance is turning away before you have even looked. Acceptance is looking all the way to the bottom. Avoidance freezes action. Acceptance opens the door to right action. The simplest way to tell the difference is to picture a gripping hand and a holding hand. The grip tightens to keep. The hold supports to lift. When you say, "I accept that this has happened," ask yourself next, "So, what is the smallest, right thing I can do right now?" If the answer is, "Take a 20-minute nap because my head is burning," that is holding. If the answer is, "Send a specific apology for making someone wait," that is holding. If the answer is, "Skip dinner to finish this task," you may be gripping. Practice enough, and you will start to smell the scent of grip from far away. Let us frame a 2-minute practice that anyone can do, anywhere, like a key hanging quietly behind the door. Wherever you are, on the sidewalk, in front of the elevator, in the bathroom, you pause. You look at something still near you, a brick, a doorknob, a leaf, to pull your sight away from the storm inside. You exhale longer than usual by half a beat. Count 4, silently. Then let the breath come in naturally. No need to force depth. Place one hand on your chest or belly. Feel skin against skin. Say one plain word for the strongest emotion right now: anxious, sad, angry, ashamed, guilty. Let that word be there like a guest. Then ask, right now, what am I wishing were different? Let the answer rise. Say one tiny promise, tied to a time. After this call, I will take a 3-minute walk. Or, at 8:30 tonight, I will write 3 truthful lines and send them. Or, tonight, I will turn off my phone at 11 o'clock. Then you move on. 2 minutes will not solve everything, but they shift the person in the driver's seat, from your emotions pulling you, to you holding their hand and moving with them. If you would like a light track to follow for 7 days, you can try the Stick Down Week. Day 1. Simply notice 3 times when you stirred, write them down. Do not fix them. Day 2. Each time you notice, add a long exhale. Day 3. Name the emotion. Day 4. Add a small promise. Day 5. Try one hard conversation that begins with a truthful sentence. I am scared of this talk, but I want to speak. Day 6. Clean one corner of your home, your desk, a kitchen shelf, as a physical metaphor for choosing the care circle. Day 7. Write a thank you letter you will not send to one of the sick little birds in your life, a project, a person, a part of your body, for what it has taught you. At the end of the week, you will not be a different person, but you will have one small habit to hold on to when the waves rise. Back at the temple courtyard, the story ends the way every morning ends. The sunlight finishing its path from rooftop to brick floor. But the viewer carries something unseen. The feeling that the way back is closer than they thought, almost within reach. The novice keeps carrying water, sweeping the courtyard, opening the cage when the bird is strong, closing it when it rains. He does the same tasks with a new mind, to care without clinging. The teacher does not give long lectures. He simply reminds now and then, put the stick down, and each time that phrase is spoken, the air seems to warm by half a degree. As for you, if you are in a room where everything demands something from you, your work, your family, your body, your memories, you can sit still for a moment. Exhale, name the feeling, make a tiny promise, and begin again. Because the secret to ending suffering turns out not to be a secret at all. It is a skill, and every skill softens in the hands of one who practices it regularly. When you close this video, life out there may look the same: unanswered texts, unbalanced accounts, The person you love still silent, but if inside you, there is now a little space wide enough for one deep breath, then the most important thing has already happened. The pain of the first arrow will still come and go in its own rhythm. But the second arrow, the one called, "This should not have happened," that one, you can choose to not fire. And the moment the bow touches the ground, a thin lightness appears, so subtle that many will miss it, but just enough for you to notice. Suffering ends when acceptance begins is no longer a quote to remember. It has become a footpath you have stepped onto. If today's path helped you stir less even once, I invite you to stay. Share your own story in the comments, even just one sentence, so someone passing by knows they're not alone. And if you would like stories like this to become part of your weekly rhythm, you can subscribe and turn on the bell, so that each time a new story is placed gently on the porch, you have a reason to exhale longer than half a beat. Place your hand on your chest, speak one plain word, and remember that the most important cage is always in your own hands, a cage that is empty, open, and ready to shelter whatever fragile thing life brings next. To care without clinging, to love without firing another arrow. Night falls, and then rises again. The days that follow flow like a small stream through the courtyard. And if you place your hand along its path, you will feel a quiet steadiness. Nothing dramatic, just the sense that the story of the sick little bird has settled to the bottom, yet continues to give off a gentle fragrance, the kind that makes you pause half a beat before every choice. One late afternoon, the clouds draw in like someone closing the curtain. The novice sits under the porch, hands folded over his knees, listening to the first rain hit the roof. The first drops are always bigger, more scattered, like the first words we speak when we have not yet taken a breath. And just then, a flock of birds cuts across the gray sky, small black wings drawing a slanted line. He suddenly remembers the bamboo cage hanging dry in the room, remembers the feel of smooth wood on his palm the day he wiped it down, remembers the long breath on the night of the burial, and he understands. The lesson was never in the cage, it was in learning to set it down at the right time. The teacher walks by, does not ask anything, simply sets a cup of steaming tea in front of him. The scent rises like a wordless song, and in that ordinary warmth, the two of them sit for a long time like two quiet stones, needing no philosophy to certify that something has ripened. You, too, can try an afternoon like that in your own room. You do not need a temple. You do not need a teacher. You only need one object to help anchor the heart, a cup placed just right, a cloth folded straight, a candle lit as evening falls. You sit, lean your back against the chair like leaning against a tree. You exhale longer than usual so the body knows you are home. Let your eyes rest on something still, so the mind has a shore. Then name the heaviest thing here with one plain word. No explanation, no speech, like the novice who said, sad, like the nurse who said, scared, like the boy by the empty chair who said, lonely. And once the word has gently left your lips, sit for a few more breaths and see if it answers back. Sometimes, it will go quiet like a child who has stopped crying. Sometimes, it will hand you a worn-out demand. Do something about this. And that is the most fragile moment, the line between care and cling, between action and struggle, between wisdom and habit. If you reach to stir, the water will cloud. If you place your hand on your thigh, the water may clear. To set it down does not mean to refuse action. To set it down means to give action a steady ground. On another morning, the smell of wet earth still hangs in the path. The teacher hands the novice an old cloth and tells him to go wipe the leaves dusted from the rain. This small gesture turns out to be a beginner's lesson in right-sized compassion. You clean each leaf with just enough pressure to remove the dirt but not tear the veins. You bend low, hand moving with the curve of the leaf, and surprisingly, the way you treat one leaf reveals the way you treat your own pain. If you strain, the leaf tears. If you rush, the dust just moves. If you are patient, The leaf turns green again with no trumpet. The pain returns to its true size without violence. And by the time the novice finishes one row, he realizes his chest has been breathing steadily all along, not because life has stopped being hard, but because his hands have learned a new movement, gentle and precise. You will find this lesson sinking into embarrassingly small things, like how you open your inbox in the morning. Before, every difficult email was a looming shadow on the wall. But now, maybe you try opening it after a long exhale. You try reading the facts first, then the opinions. You try replying with one short sentence focused on what you can control, and schedule a time to return to what is still unclear. Then, you close your inbox to focus on the one thing that needs doing now. You will notice your heart no longer plays the role of the trigger finger for the second arrow, even though the first arrow might still be there. And one evening, while doing the dishes, you will realize the sink is no longer overflowing. Not because the faucet runs slower, but because your hands are no longer slamming plates together. One night, with frogs croaking in the rice fields, the novice lies back, staring at the ceiling, remembering the old question: if I lower the bow, is that giving up? It used to make his head ache, but now it floats by like a leaf in a basin of water, because his body already knows the answer. Put it down so your hands are free to do the right thing. Put it down so your eyes can see the path. Put it down so your feet can walk steadily. He smiles into the dark, like someone taking off a backpack after a long day. His shoulders are light, but the road ahead is still there, clearer, even. He falls asleep like a grain of dust finally settling at the bottom of the basin. You can do that tonight. There is nothing mystical about it, only patience with yourself, like a beginner on the piano who does not hate their fingers for not yet being nimble. You just practice the same chorus slowly, until your hands remember the way without having to break it down. The next Sunday morning, the temple welcomes children from the neighborhood to help sweep the courtyard. The teacher stands on the steps, broom in hand, delivering the only beginner's lesson anyone ever truly needs. Not a long list of rules, just one sentence, short enough to tuck into a pocket. In everything you do, find your proper place to stand. Then he demonstrates one sweep along the groove between bricks, not showy, not sloppy, just enough pressure for the dry leaves to fall without kicking mud onto the porch. The novice hands the broom to the smallest child. He wraps their little fingers around the handle. It feels like his hand is touching a future he cannot name, a future where these children, too, will one day meet their own sick little birds, and if they are lucky, they will remember how to put the stick down. You and I, we were once those children, gripping a broom handle bigger than our hands. And strangely, years later, life only teaches us the same lesson again. The only difference is that now the courtyard is wider and the leaves are more. Another afternoon, when the sunlight is as thin as rice paper, a farmer stops by to borrow a scale. He complains about the failed harvest, the low price of rice, his grandchild's fever, his aching back. For a moment, the words pile up like bowls around a pot of soup. The teacher pours him a cup of water and listens. No interruptions, no advice. At the end, he asks what sounds like a routine question but turns out to be the key. This evening, what is one small thing you can do to help yourself sleep a little easier? The farmer falls silent. Then he gives a bitter laugh and says, maybe just eat well and give the kid their medicine on time. The teacher nods. Then do those two things. If you have energy tomorrow morning, call your neighbor and ask to borrow the water pump. If you spend the evening angry, even the weather will pass you by. Anger is like a rainstorm. The fields are still waiting for your hands. In that quiet exchange, you hear an old lesson in a new coat. Acceptance is not changing your fate. Acceptance is changing the way you look, so that your hands can still do their part. When the rainy season is more than halfway through, a new nest appears on the almond tree by the temple gate. You do not know which pair of birds built it. A few hurried straws, but tight. You want to say, Be careful, but then you remember those small wings have their own choices. And if one day the wind knocks a baby bird down, you will open your palm like the novice did, care within your capacity, warm within your means, but never turn your hand into a cage. When it is strong, you open your hand, let what once needed you return to the sky. And in that moment of letting go, your chest might ache, like a string pulled tight on an instrument. But the sound that comes out will be rounder, fuller. That is the sound of a heart that knows how to give effort without violence, to love without tying strings. By now, perhaps you have a fairly clear picture of your own path back. It is not in a book, it is in your hands, your breath, your timely little sentence. And every time you feel lost, all you have to do is follow the tracks backward. Exhale longer than half a beat to silence the alarm in your body. Name the emotion to remind your mind that it is a real creature with a shape, not a nameless monster. Choose one small action within your circle of control, like laying a brick in the right place. If you forget one day, that is fine. The path is still there. Keep walking tomorrow, like a hiker returning late but still recognizing the smell of familiar leaves. And when you meet someone who is stirring the water in panic, do not preach. Just place a cup of warm water in front of them and stay for a few minutes. Sometimes, a non-stirring presence is the best reminder of the secret the sick little bird has left us. Suffering retreats when acceptance shows up like a calm companion beside right effort. Finally, let me place one small image in your imagination to gently close this chapter. You come home after a rough day. The same old furniture, the soft yellow light of the kitchen. You place your keys on the shelf instead of tossing them. You pour a glass of water instead of opening the fridge out of habit. You lean against the counter and let one long breath pass without forcing it into a practice. You look at the photo of someone smiling kindly on the wall. You greet them with a nod. Then you go to your room. Silence your phone at the time you promised yourself you would. You sit at the edge of your bed. Place your hand on your chest. Whisper one plain word. And in that moment, even if everything outside remains unchanged, something inside you has shifted. Just the width of a breath. A shift small enough to let in a sliver of light. And through that light, you realize what this whole story has been trying to say. The secret to ending suffering is not in some distant land. It is in your willingness to stay fully with what is here, with a heart that knows how to set down what it does not need to grip, and how to hold what needs to be cared for. Today, right now, exactly where you are, the next afternoon, when the sunlight has thinned to threads and the cicadas are no longer screaming. The teacher calls the novice to the back courtyard. On a low wooden table sit 3 bowls, one with wet stones, one with clear water, one with dry seeds. The teacher says nothing at first. He simply pushes the bowl of stones toward the novice and says, "Try picking some up." The novice grabs a handful. Water seeps through his fingers. The back of his hand feels cold. "What will you do with these stones?" the teacher asks. The novice is puzzled. The teacher smiles and pushes the bowl of water next. "What about this one?" The novice cups the rim with both hands, as if to protect it from spilling. Then the teacher gently taps the bowl of seeds. "And this one?" The novice stares at the dry little grains, each one a possibility. The teacher says, "Your life is made of all 3, the heavy, solid things like stones, birth, aging, illness, death, upheaval, drought, the things that flow, like water, relationships, jobs, feelings. Sometimes you can contain them. Sometimes they overflow. And the seeds, habits, small promises, 1 hour of proper sleep, which will grow if you plant them in the right soil." Suffering explodes when you pour all your energy into moving the stones or blocking the sun and rain from the water, while forgetting to plant the seeds. The lesson of the sick little bird is not only to look at the stones and the water. It is to return to the seeds, and sow them, every day. Then he stands, still holding the bowl of seeds, and walks around the vegetable bed, scattering them lightly as he goes, whispering gently like a quiet farmer, "Breathe, Name, tiny promise. As if sowing a humble mantra into the earth, not sacred, but steady. The novice follows, and with each seed that touches the soil, a different scene appears in his mind. A woman writing an email to reduce her workload because it no longer fits. A young man folding the letter he will never send, placing a period at the end of the past. An adult child scheduling a 9 a.m. call with the doctor. Instead of staying up guessing all night, he realizes that the secret promised in the story's title was never hidden in some treasure chest. It lives in a shift of effort. Less stone pushing, less water holding, more seed planting. That night, sitting beside a small oil lamp, he writes 3 seeds for tomorrow. His handwriting is round and slow. Drink water right after waking up. Respond to a hard message with 1 truthful sentence. Turn off phone at 11 p.m. 3 things so small they feel trivial, but it is because they are small that they can be done. He folds the paper and places it in his pocket like placing a light stone to remember the path. And in the moment he closes the pocket, he hears a soft clicking inside his chest. The sound of a latch falling into place. Not loud, but lasting. One morning, dew lay on the grass like salt sprinkled, and the novice carried a basin of water across the porch. In a very small moment, between 2 steps, he caught himself intending to rush through to get it over with, the old habit. Right then, without a sermon, he lowered his heel fully. Exhaled a breath longer than usual by half a beat, letting the water stay still. A guest happened to see him, asked why he was walking so slowly. The novice shook his head and smiled, not defending himself, just meaning, I am planting seeds slowly so I can arrive in time for myself. That guest might go home and tell the story of a novice carrying water without spilling, a story that seems unrelated to ending suffering, but in truth is the most concrete form of it. When we are fully present, we stop firing the second arrow. By noon, the clouds closed in. A sudden rain fell, tiles banging softly. In the kitchen, he heard his neighbor's voice calling from the gate, mingled with the rain. My daughter is freaking out again. She says the exam is soon and she has not studied. The teacher motioned for her in, poured her a cup of tea. He did not rush to philosophize. He said, try sitting down. Put your feet on warm tiles. Exhale longer than usual by half a beat. Write exactly 3 lines of facts, exam date, what has been studied, what has not been studied. Then write 1 small promise with a specific time for this afternoon. 4:30 p.m. Do a 20-minute practice test. She left not carrying the burden of, I must pass at all costs, but with a packet of seeds she could sow immediately. Rain still poured. The words on paper were wet at the edges, but in the middle of the page, a trace of a path had already formed. In the days that followed, the novice did not become a saint overnight. He only stirred less. Sometimes he still snapped at a cracked ceramic bowl, still felt hurt by an offhand remark, still had tears when he saw a feather caught on a dry bamboo branch. But then he remembered, like remembering the way home, that there are 3 moves he can make in any situation. Exhale longer by half a beat to put down the alarm signal. Name the emotion. Give it a seat. Make a small promise. Set a wheel rolling on the path. And strangely, when these 3 moves become muscle habits, he begins to hear the background sounds that used to be drowned out by the noise of stirring. The body asking for 10 minutes rest at 3 in the afternoon. The self-respect desiring 1 honest word instead of a forced smile. The kindness within him wanting to send a message of apology sooner. These background sounds are not loud, but they are steady, and when we collaborate with them, the suffering does not need to fight to recede. One late month afternoon, the teacher called him out to the gate, pointing down the dirt road. Do you hear? The novice listened, thinking the teacher meant bird calls. But the teacher meant people's voices. A young couple arguing at the end of the alley. The rattling of the trash cart. Footsteps of teenagers running in the rain. Every sound is a life seeking its path. And every life has a sick little bird, demanding we stir. The teacher said, a person who knows how to put down the stick does not reject the noise. They hear both outside and inside without mistaking either for the only song. If you listen only to fear, you believe life is threat. If only to drive, you believe it is all about progress. But if you hear all of it and choose the breath that fits, you see life as an orchestra needing a calm conductor. The novice laughed, said, I do not dare to be conductor. The teacher replied, no one dares at first. Everyone begins with keeping rhythm in a small passage, an evening, a phone call, a meal. Recognize which parts are yours to hold, which parts are life's to let flow. That sentence became an invisible coat hanger at the door of his mind. Each time he stepped out, he asked himself, is this part mine, or is it life's? If it is his, he breathes, names, makes a small promise. If it belongs to life, he bows, not in defeat, but in respect for the common tempo. As for you, reading this, may be holding a handful of stones, water, and seeds together. Try letting this story walk into your room, tonight. When your phone has finished its final chimes of the day, place it face down like you put the stirring stick to rest. Pour a glass of water and lean back. Look directly at what feels heaviest in this moment, an unpaid bill, an unopened email, a conversation you are afraid to have, instead of sketching in your mind an escape route or a charge forward. Do something so boring that no one would boast about it. Exhale longer than half a beat. Then name it, debt, fear, shame, anger, so it has an identity. Then make a tiny promise with a time. 9:30 a.m. tomorrow, call the bank for 5 minutes. 7 p.m. tomorrow, send one opening line to the hard email. Midday tomorrow, walk for 10 minutes before calling. These 3 small lines are seeds dropped into the soil of tomorrow. The stones, the heavy, sure things, remain. The water, the things that flow, still flows. But your heart becomes a garden being tended. And the gardener is you. With hands no longer trembling from holding the sky, only busy enough to sow what is in reach. By now, the secret in the story, how the sick little bird reveals how to end suffering, emerges by itself. It is a path worn from walking so often it needs no signpost. Suffering does not end by miracle. It retreats when effort changes direction, from forcing the impossible, to caring for what is possible, from shooting the second arrow, to lowering the bow, from proving you are strong, to practicing your truth. And each of these changes begins with one small move, so small it goes unnoticed. Exhaling longer by half a beat. If tomorrow you forget, tonight do it again. If this week is messy, return next week. The path does not judge, it only waits for footprints. One day, when you hear yourself quietly saying to someone who is stirring in panic, put the stick down, you will understand. This story has passed through you to stay within another. Like a seed carried by hand to hand. That is the moment when the secret is no longer a headline. It becomes the rhythm of your life, quiet yet firm, ordinary yet freeing. One morning near the end of the season, the teacher brings from storage a porcelain bowl cracked in 3 winding rivers like old map lines. He places it on the table so that sunlight falls right through the crack. Then he tells the novice to mix some golden lacquer to repair it, the kind that sparkles like sunlight crushed to dust. The teacher slowly applies the lacquer into the crack, stroke by stroke, breathing steadily, then aligns the 2 broken edges so they fit like 2 friends reunited after a season apart. When the fine gold line closes the gap, the bowl no longer looks whole in the old way, but it has acquired a different beauty. Like a face that has endured a storm and learned to smile. The teacher pushes the bowl toward the novice, speaks softly as if to a dewdrop. Not every crack must be hidden. Some cracks should be seen, so we remember the way back. Then he pours tea into that repaired bowl, offering it to the novice, so he can feel with lips and eyes that acceptance is not surrender. It is naming the crack and letting light through. From that bowl, the story suddenly bridges into your life, where every tense email, every tight chest, every farewell, every test result reveals a crack, and instead of smothering it with white paste pretending nothing is broken, you begin using golden lacquer made of breath and truth, filling the edge of rupture with 3 small acts. Exhale longer than half a beat to calm the alarm. Name the emotion with 1 plain word so it has a chair. Promise a small act with a time so your hands are doing something real, so that when you lift your head, you see life has not promised full calm, but the bowl of tea in your hand is warm. And because life does not only happen in temple courtyards, that afternoon a man wearing a motorcycle helmet stopped outside the gate. His eyes red from a sleepless night. He said his younger brother was unemployed, staying in his room for 3 days, not leaving. His mother called him to eat and he did not answer. He was afraid everything would get worse. The teacher invited him in, poured him warm tea, did not give empty courage, only opened a very small but full frame of action. Tonight, stand outside his room. Say exactly this: I am here. At 7:30 p.m. we will have dinner together for 15 minutes. No talk of work. If he comes out to eat, after dinner ask him to go for a 5-minute walk around the alley. If he does not, place a tray of food in front of his door and send one true message, not pushing. I am afraid for both you and me being here. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock call one of his friends to ask about job leads. Tomorrow at noon call his family doctor to ask for the earliest slot for a general health check. He listened. His face softened somewhat, not because the problem disappeared, but because suddenly he could distinguish the circle of what he cares for and the circle he does not control. From that, anxiety's wings closed a little. You look at that scene as if seeing yourself in the mirror. Because in his story there is your story too, in the midst of fear. What rescues you is not a speech of self-soothing, but a chain of doable movements, scheduled, repeated long enough to become a path, and every time you wander, the path is already laid out. Then come the harder questions everyone watching has in their head like sparks in dry grass. But what if the other person is wrong? What if the workplace is unjust? What if the world really is bad? The teacher does not avoid those thorny words. He tells the story of a blacksmith selecting just the right heat to temper steel. Too little fire, the steel remains soft. Too much fire, it becomes brittle. A furious blacksmith hammers strongly for release, and the steel's surface cracks. A fearful blacksmith strikes in secret, and the steel bends out of shape. Only when the blacksmith sees the heat, accepts the heat as part of the craft, and then delivers each hammer strike with even rhythm, will the steel become a blade. Struggle is similar. If you accept what has happened in order to stop shooting the second arrow, you gain energy for correct action, gathering evidence, speaking one true sentence to the person responsible, seeking allies, setting deadlines for yourself, preserving your health. But if you deny reality because it should not have been, you will throw the hammer wildly, the only sure thing being that your hand bleeds. Acceptance is to look squarely at what is, not to resign. Acceptance allows the heart to stand firm in the wind so the hands can do what must be done. In an evening class for adults, the novice was asked by the teacher to help. A 40-year-old accountant said in a voice both tired and ashamed, "I try to meditate many times but always fail." The teacher smiled and said, "You are not failing. You just forget that meditation is not turning off thought. Meditation is remembering you are breathing." Then he gave the class a take-home exercise with a vow easier to keep than a big slogan: once a day. In a specific situation that repeats: opening your inbox in the morning, stepping inside the house after work, before dinner, place hand on chest, exhale longer than usual by half a beat, name the emotion with one plain word, and then write one true sentence for the next action. Just one sentence, not an essay. Do this 7 days. If you forget, make up for it. If you stray, return. You can choose your own marker, elevator button, doorknob, car seat, any place your hand touches something real. There you anchor yourself in reality. After 2 weeks, people who thought, meditation is not for me, often discover they never lacked aptitude. They lacked a place to hang the habit hook. One quiet night, wind still, moon tilted like a thin coin over the temple roof, the novice spread his mat and sat with the teacher, looking at the dirt road to the gate glimmering silver. He asked, "How will I know when I have set the stick down?" The teacher pointed at his chest. "When you hear your inside not roar because you want reality to change, but grow warm because you stepped into your portion of work." He asked, "When will I know I am clinging?" The teacher smiled. "When a good action turns into a shackle." The novice became silent, listened to crickets, leaves, his own heart piece by piece. You can try that tonight. No need moonlight, just dim lights. Sit in the quietest spot at home. Listen to what voices are inside. The voice of blame, fear, longing, gratitude. Then choose one voice to place your hand over. Exhale, and speak to it as you would to a friend who needs to be called by name. In that moment you will understand why meditation masters teach using very small images, cracked bowls, dusty leaves, basins of ash, bird cages. Because big truths always hide in small gestures, just as the secret of ending suffering hides in one breath that knows it is breathing. To let that secret not remain in your mind only but sink into your muscles. The teacher and the novice set a season of 3 seeds for the Sangha, 90 days. Each person picks 3 seeds to repeat throughout the season as pillars. Not chasing after 20 tips, only keeping 3 rhythms. 1 seed for the body, 1 seed for words, 1 seed for the heart. The body might be, walk 15 minutes after lunch, or turn off phone at 11 p.m. Words might be, 1 short true sentence a day instead of circling around. Heart might be, each evening write 3 lines about one thing I wish were different without judgment. Plant the 3 seeds in good soil. Rain or shine, they will sprout. You might imagine this is grand. Actually, it is like having rice, salt, water in the kitchen. Every day you cook a pot. No meal is glamorous to show off. But after 1 season, your body changes, your sleep changes, how you open your mouth changes. And that heaviness in chest that used to return without warning begins to have courtesy. It knocks before entering. Because you taught it how it may come. One morning near the end of the season, the teacher brought from storage a porcelain bowl cracked in 3 winding rivers like old map lines. He placed the bowl on a table, angled so that sunlight fell through the cracks. Then he told the novice to mix golden lacquer to mend the cracks, lacquer shimmering like sunlight crushed to dust. The teacher carefully rubbed the lacquer into the crack, bit by bit, breathing evenly, then aligned the 2 broken edges so they met like 2 friends reunited after separation. When the golden line closed the gap, the bowl no longer looked whole as before, but it had another kind of beauty, like a face that has weathered a storm and learned to smile. The teacher pushed the bowl toward the novice, speaking very softly as to a dewdrop. Not all cracks must be hidden. Some should be seen so we remember the way back. Then he poured tea into that repaired bowl, offering it, so the novice could feel with lips and eyes that acceptance is not surrender. It is naming the crack and letting light through. From that bowl, the story unexpectedly builds a bridge over into your life, where every tense email, every tightening chest, every parting, every test result, reveals a crack, and instead of plastering it over with white paste pretending nothing broke, you begin using golden lacquer made from breath and truth, repairing edges with 3 small acts. Exhale longer than half a beat to quiet false alarms. Name the emotion with a plain word so it has a seat. Promise a small doable thing at a time so that your hands are doing something real, so that when you lift your gaze, you see that the day has not promised all calm, but the cup of tea in your hand is warm. Near the end of the season, when the early sunspots had become thin like honey diluted with water and the cicadas pulled back into quieter gaps, the teacher arranged a map in the courtyard from ordinary items, an old rope tied into a large circle. Inside the circle 3 bricks laid in a diagonal, At the edge of the circle, the teacher stuck a small bamboo stick, tied a white cloth to its top. He called over several people visiting the temple, a busy nurse, a long-haul driver, a senior student, and the novice, asked them to come closer. He said, "Today I preach nothing. Today we play a game. The rope circle is life, the things that will come whether we want them or not. The 3 bricks are 3 actions: to exhale long, to name, to make a small promise, and the white cloth is the second arrow." Then he pulled the cloth so it snapped into the air with a soft whop, and asked, "When something bad happens, do we often raise our hand to catch that arrow? Squeeze it tight as proof to self-punish? Or can we put down the hand and step onto one of the bricks?" The nurse smiled awkwardly, saying she often holds the arrow by retelling the same story to 5 people in one evening. The driver admitted that every time he gets stuck in traffic he curses informally. The student said she loads yet another study app when she fears failing a class. The teacher asked each to stand and try stepping. Before retelling, step on, exhale long. Before cursing, step on, name. Before downloading yet another app, step on, promise small. They performed this as a silent play. And what changed was not the sky or the ground. Traffic was still jammed, shifts still heavy, exams still pending, but the posture of each person: shoulders relaxing, eyes softening, hands that pointed less. Then the teacher rolled the rope circle once around the courtyard and said, "The circle of life always moves. If we stand still in the role of victim, the circle will grind at our heels. If we run just to outrun it, we will exhaust. But if we step in rhythm, each step on a brick, wherever the circle goes, we still have the path." This is the concrete shape of acceptance, not lying down, not rushing forward, just standing in the right place so you can still do your part. When the game ended, they cluster together and talk about where they often fall in. The novice sits a little back, eyes following the bamboo stick at the circle's edge. In his mind suddenly comes a short sentence like one long stitched patch: have seen, have named, have cared. A little 3-part measure, enough record for each suffering that passes. From that day on, have becomes his key word. Each time his chest tightens he asks himself, "Have I seen yet? If not, breathe. Have I named yet? If not, name. Have I cared for what I can yet? If not, promise small." Strangely, once all 3 haves are ticked, suffering behaves like a polite guest. It may stay if needed, but it stops breaking things. The story moves naturally from the temple yard into your own room. In the morning you open your eyes. Before sliding a hand into the whirlwind of messages and tasks, try looking at your day through an imaginary rope circle. Where did an arrow already shoot? A sharp email last night? A result that disappointed? Where are the 3 bricks? A breath, a plain word, a small promise, and where is the bamboo stick reminding you, do not grab that arrow? You do not need grand scaffolding, only everyday markers, a doorknob, an elevator button, the first glass of water of day. Place at each marker a have breathed, have named, have cared. By evening you will wonder when you walked through a small rain and your shirt was no longer soaked. Another afternoon, sky calm. The teacher brings 2 ropes. He tells the novice to grip both ends of the first rope and pull as far as possible. Rope taut, tendons visible. Teacher asks, "What is this?" Novice answers, "Resistance." Teacher nods. Then the teacher tells him to let both ends drop. Rope falling with a thump. "And this?" the teacher asks. Novice replies, "Letting go." Teacher nods again. Finally, teacher ties one end of a rope to the porch post. Tells the novice to hold the other end, not to pull, not to let go completely. Just hold it straight. Enough. The teacher walks around the yard. The rope follows him but stays a gentle straight line. And this, the teacher says, is collaborating with reality. Holding enough to transmit strength. Letting go enough not to break. He says, if you can do that with rope, You can do that with a difficult conversation, with a heavy workload, even with bodily suffering. That image sinks into your heart like a marker. That evening, the novice watches over a neighbor child who cries. Instead of, "You must stop crying," pulling the rope, or, "You cry however you want," letting go entirely. He sits beside the child and holds the rope, places his hand on the child's back, warms the back, and the crying softens. You hear the story and you see in your home a similar rope, with coworkers, with family, with yourself. Tomorrow, when someone becomes angry, try holding the rope. "I am upset. I want 5 minutes to step back. At 6:30 p.m. I will talk about this." Then leave the room. Place your hand on your chest. Exhale half a beat longer. That is not a psychological trick. That is the mechanics of the heart. Hold enough so you do not snap. Release enough so you do not burn. One day, a group of young people came asking the teacher how not to fear being wrong. The teacher smiled kindly and said, "Do not learn not to fear. Learn, though afraid, you still place a brick." Then he gave the group an exercise like a playful dare. Each person chooses something they have been postponing: apologizing, sending a resume, going to the gym, opening a hard email. Set an alarm for exactly 10 minutes. Before starting, exhale long. Name, fear. Write one honest opening sentence. When 10 minutes are up, stop even if you are eager. Do not try to win on day one. Win by stopping at the right moment so that you still want to continue. He said. A week later, they return with faces that are different, not because they are suddenly braver than others, but because they have a short track they run back and forth until the tracks join and become a kind of net. You can copy that practice exactly into your life. 10 minutes to face what you fear. Stop at minute 10. Repeat it each day. Fear does not vanish like magic, but it retreats like dew when sunshine comes. Not aggressive, not dramatic. There will also be days with no progress enough to speak of. You stumble. You get angry. You say something sharp. You scroll phones into the night. You forget the promised phone-off hour. In those nights you are quick to hate yourself, to throw away all habits just begun. Remember the repaired porcelain bowl with gold. A crack revealed does not destroy value. It creates a different beauty, provided you are willing to use the lacquer and smooth it. Here, the lacquer is still those 3 old actions. Exhale long. Do not judge immediately. Name the emotion. Do not label prematurely. Promise small. Do not bow grandly. Write. Tomorrow 8:30 make warm water. 8:35 respond to a difficult message with one honest sentence. Fold the paper. Sleep. In the morning set your feet on the floor and do what the paper said. Not expecting triumphant fanfare. Several times like that, you will learn the craft of patience, the hardest craft because no one applauds, but the only one that heals the stirring from its root. At a small ceremony, lanterns lit in the courtyard, shadows of bamboo cages casting dark light patterns on the mossy walls. The teacher told 4 short stories like 4 minimal sutras. The story of ash settling in a basin. Stop stirring so water can clear. The story of the bowl repaired with gold. Give cracks a name so light may pass. The story of the rope. Hold just enough to transmit strength. The story of the rope circle and 3 bricks. Step in rhythm so the life circle does not crush the heel. He ended with a soft but firm sentence. Compassion is not letting whatever you want just happen. Compassion is the art of placing the right force in the right place at the right time. Then he invited everyone to stand. Each quietly make a small promise with a time, as though lighting a candle in the heart. You reading this far might want to light one too. Set alarm 11 p.m. to turn off phone, or 7 a.m. to drink warm water, or 4:30 p.m. to walk for 8 minutes. These candles do not banish night immediately, but strung together, they light enough for you to see that path does not smash into walls. After the ceremony, the novice stored the bamboo cage in a dry place, passed by the small mound of earth under the bamboo root where the first bird remained. Paused a half beat, not from sorrow, but from gratitude. Without that first bird he would not have learned how to put down the stick. Without the tear-wet days, he would not have learned to exhale long. He carried on with his day, swept a path just wide enough for 2 feet, placed bowls on the wooden shelf so the rims were not chipped, turned down the stove flame before stepping away, and quietly sowed the haves, have seen, have named, have cared. Somewhere in the city, you do the same. Answer a difficult email with one honest sentence. Say, I am confused. Give me 24 hours. Walk around the block for 6 minutes after dinner. Place hand on chest 3 beats before replying to a sharp message. No one records you. No one gives medals. But by evening, you notice the familiar chest tightness arrived late, stayed short, departed quietly. Enough sign to believe the secret has shifted positions. From words hung in titles of videos, into a skill etched into your hands. And if one day the sky is bad, the news is bad, people are bad, a day when all the bricks seem lost, return to the simplest starting point. 2 feet placed on the floor. 1 exhale longer than usual by half a beat. 1 plain word naming what is overflowing. 1 small promise tied to a time. Do those 4 things. Then think of larger matters. Because in the end, the exit path from suffering is not at some secret crossroads. It lies in steps small enough to make every day. And each time you step, you hear very softly the click of the latch inside matching. The sign of a heart that has learned to collaborate with reality. See, name, care, the rest, as the teacher always says, belongs to a current greater than yourself. Near the end of the season again, the wind shifts very gently, as if someone turns a hand fan, the smell of fresh straw and ripe earth rising in the air. The teacher tells the novice to come down to the village market, not to buy anything important, but to listen to what life is speaking. The market is loud in its own way. The tap-clack of knives on cutting boards, the creak of scales, the bargaining voices, children pulling at their mother's clothing, and among those sounds, a couple arguing over a pile of vegetables that was rejected. The "you did this, you did that" fly back and forth like 2 pebbles thrown into water. The teacher does not interrupt. He stands a little away, exhales long as if setting down a load, then steps closer and asks a question that is not taking sides. This afternoon, what is something you both would like to be different? Something possible in an hour. The question sounds funny in the market, but it breaks the rhythm of shooting the second arrow. The wife says, I want to not yell in front of the child. The husband says, I want to call the customer and ask to make up the order. The teacher nods, says, do those 2 things. We will talk fairness later tonight. They nod. They are not persuaded by philosophy, only reminded of the 3 bricks. Exhale, name, promise small. When leaving the market, the novice asks the teacher why that question works. The teacher smiles, because it pulls a person's hand off the bow, away from the need to win immediately, so the hand is free to care for what one can. On the way home, sun strides through bamboo leaves patchy like an old mat. The novice thinks of the thin notebook he has kept in his shirt pocket all these months. Cover softened by opening again and again. On the left page he writes, have seen what? In the middle, have named what? On the right, have cared for what? Each day only a few lines. And it is strange. The scarcity of each line is what makes them lasting. Have seen, chest tight, have named, fear, have cared, 7 p.m. call mother 5 minutes. Or, have seen, laziness, have named, shame, have cared, 3 o'clock reading 15 minutes. The notebook looks like a weather journal, but of the heart. Some days he forgets. The next day he writes just 1 line. Have seen, forgot, that is honest enough to come back. You can start 1 too. The cover need not be pretty. The pen not new. Just hold to the 3 words, have. Because have is proof of presence. And all the will and should are fragile promises when storms come. One night a flash of lightning. Power flickers out and back again. The sky promising but not yet raining. The novice sits on the porch step, thinking of the thresholds his teacher taught: door handle, light switch, seatbelt. Each place touched is a quiet reminder: put the stick down. He opens a door, places hand slowly, breathes out long, names, rush, and steps into the kitchen with quieter footsteps, flips the light switch. He does not judge the day, good, bad. He makes a small promise: 9:30 p.m. wash dishes right after dinner. Then does it. He fastens the seatbelt, hears the snap as a resonance, reminding that some things need fastening so you can have a little more freedom. And so the physical thresholds become hangers for psychological habit. You will be surprised at how choosing 3 thresholds of your own, e.g. bathroom door handle, elevator button at work floor, seatbelt buckle, placing there the 3 moves, you already build a small network to patch cracks in the day before they crease wide. One rare calm evening, the teacher says to the novice, try a 90-second guide. A practice he calls washing the nerves. Sit on edge of bed, both feet on floor so body remembers it is supported. Exhale longer than usual by half a beat as if setting a bucket down. Gaze at something still, doorknob, windowsill, table edge. Place one hand on chest, the other on belly. Quietly listen until you feel both hands moving differently. Then softly say one plain word: sad, worried, angry, tired, so the mind does not have to guess. Then ask, right now, what is the smallest thing in my power? If answer is, drink water, stand and drink. If, write one apology sentence, write it. If, turn off light, turn it off and sleep. The whole task takes less than 90 seconds. Like washing your face, not changing your life, but cleansing one layer of exhaustion. Doing it every night. You do not wait for your spirit to blaze to begin. You practice when it is dim. Like a blacksmith who hones skill on cool days without roaring fire. Then one day, someone brings a truly messy matter to the temple, a money dispute. Voices heavy like hammers, faces warped by pride. And that is when the story, Care Without Clinging, has chanced to rise off the page and stand on its 2 legs. The teacher invites both sides to sit across from each other at an empty table. Nothing on the table but a teapot and 3 cups. He tells each person to say exactly 3 things: 1 fact, 1 feeling, 1 proposal with a time. If someone says more than 3, he raises his hand and says, the second arrow is stirring. The whole session holds no miracle, only a rule that keeps a heavy rain from becoming flood. At its end, someone smirks, not fixed yet. Teacher. The teacher nods. Then again at 9 in morning. That is a small promise as steady as shade. People leave. No one laughs, but no one storms off. The novice clears the cups, understands that sometimes ending suffering does not mean solving the problem, but ending the way of dealing that leaves us bruised. He learns one more thing while caring for the gold-repaired bowl: a crack, when placed correctly in light, becomes a guide so you do not hold things too tightly. Each time a finger traces the golden line, he reminds himself to pull a little less, and that is technical compassion. It does not demand you become saintly. It only asks that you reduce force in the right spots. Child crying, reduce half the force in shut up. Friend who lets you down, reduce half the force in never again. Yourself when tired, reduce half the force in useless, and increase half the force toward care. Sleep, eat, put phone away, walk, make that necessary call. Compassion, in that way, is not soft emotion. It is a skill of distributed force. One windy afternoon toward dusk, teacher and novice sit quietly a long time without speaking, like 2 stones with their own voices. Then the teacher points to the sky. A flock of birds that seemed still now drifting in another direction. But the sky has not changed. Tomorrow, your sky may darken a little because of clouds, or lighten because of the wind. The teacher says, the you, who breathes long, who names, who promises small, That is the sky. The emotions are clouds. The facts are wind. Do not try to teach the clouds to stay in place. Learn the art of stretching a rope just enough to hang wind chimes without breaking. The sentence sounds poetic, but it is technical drawing for tomorrow. When clouds come, worry, sadness, anger, the sky does not need to vanish. It only needs to remember it is sky. And the wind chime, the right action, will sound when the wind arrives. And if one day the sky is bad, the news is bad, people are bad, a day when all your bricks seem misplaced, return to the simplest origin. Place both feet on the ground. Exhale a breath longer than usual by half a beat. Speak a plain word naming what is overflowing. Make a small promise tied to a time. Do those 4 things. Then consider the larger matters. Because ultimately, the escape path from suffering is not a secret fork in the road. It is in steps small enough to place every day. And each time you place one, you hear very quietly the click of an inner latch aligning. The signal of a heart that has learned to collaborate with what is real. See, name, care, the rest, as the teacher always says, belongs to a current greater than yourself. Near the end of the season, when the light patches of morning sun are thin like honey diluted with water, and cicada calls pull back into rare gaps, the teacher told the novice to walk with him to the village market. Not to buy anything important, just to listen to what life is speaking. The market is noisy in its own way, knives tapping on cutting boards, scales wavering, voices bargaining, children tugging at their mother's sleeves, and among those sounds, a couple arguing over a returned batch of vegetables. You, and you, flying back and forth like 2 stones thrown into water. The teacher does not intervene. He stands at just the right distance, exhales long as if setting down a load, then steps forward and asks a question without choosing sides. This afternoon, what is one thing you both want to be different that you could do in an hour? It sounds odd in the market, but it breaks the rhythm of firing the second arrow. The wife said, I want not to shout in front of the child. The husband, I want to call the customer to ask to deliver a replacement. The teacher nodded and said, then do those 2 things. We will discuss fairness later tonight. They nodded. They did not need philosophies. They were reminded of the 3 bricks. Exhale, name, promise small. Walking home, sunlight filtered through the bamboo canopy in patchy gold like an old mat. The novice thought of the thin notebook he has carried in his shirt for months. Cover worn from opening and folding. On the left page he writes, have seen what? In the middle, have named what? On the right, have cared for what? Each day only a few lines. And oddly, the sparseness of each entry is what makes them durable. Have seen, chest heavy, have named, fear, have cared, 7 p.m. call mother for 5 minutes. Or, have seen, laziness, have named, shame, have cared, 3 o'clock read for 15 minutes. The notebook looks like a weather notebook, but it is the weather of the heart. Some days he forgets. The next day he writes 1 line. Have seen, forgot, that is honest enough to return. You too can start one. Cover need not be pretty. Pen need not be new. Just cling to the 3 words, have. Because have is proof of being present, while will and should are promises that may break when storms come. One night lightning flickers out and back, the sky promising rain but not yet raining. The novice sits on the step, thinking of thresholds the teacher described. The bathroom door handle, the light switch, the seat belt, each touch a quiet reminder. Put the stirring stick down. He opens a door, places his hand slowly, exhales long, names, rush, walks into the kitchen with footsteps softened, turns on the light. Does not judge the day, good, bad. He only promises small, 9:30 wash the dishes right after dinner, and does it, seatbelt clicks. He hears its snap, like a sound of quiet affirmation, reminding him that some things need fastening so you can be freer elsewhere. Thresholds in the world become hangers for habits of the mind. You will be surprised Pick 3 such thresholds of your own, perhaps the bathroom door handle, an elevator button at work, the seat belt in your car. Place at each of them the 3 moves. Exhale long. Name plainly. Promise small. You will have a little network to mend the cracks in the day before they widen. Some days you will not see progress worth speaking of. You will stumble. You will get angry. You will say a sharp word. Scroll through phone late. Forget the promised time to power down. On such nights you might hate yourself. Feel like discarding all nascent habits. Remember the golden repaired porcelain bowl. A crack when exposed to the light is not a ruin. It becomes another kind of beauty. If you are willing to use the lacquer and smooth it, here, that lacquer is still the same 3 old actions. Exhale long, do not judge at once. Name the feeling. Avoid snapping labels. Promise a small act, avoid big vows. Write. Tomorrow 8:30 warm water. 8:35 respond to a tough message with 1 honest sentence. Fold the note. Sleep. In the morning. Plant your feet on the ground and do what the paper said. Without expecting a triumphant song. Several such days you will learn the craft of patience. The hardest craft because no one applauds. But the only way to heal the stirring at its root. One sacred evening. Lanterns lit in the courtyard. Shadows of bamboo cages cast dim patterns on mossy walls. The teacher tells 4 small stories like 4 minimal sutras. The ash settling basin. Stop stirring so water can clear. The golden repaired bowl. Give cracks a name so light passes. The rope. Hold just enough to carry force. The circle rope and 3 bricks. Step in rhythm so life's circle does not crush the heel. He ends with a soft but certain sentence. Compassion does not mean letting anything go as one wishes. Compassion is the art of placing the right force at the right place at the right time. Then he invites everyone to stand. Each quietly make a small promise tied to a time. As though lighting a candle in the heart. You reading this far might want to light one too. Set alarm 11 p.m. to turn off your phone. Or 7 a.m. drink warm water. Or 4:30 p.m. walk 8 minutes. These candles do not banish night at once. But strung together, they light enough for you to see a way that doesn't crash into walls. After the ceremony, the novice put the bamboo cage away to a dry spot, walked past the mound under the bamboo where the first bird stayed. Paused a half beat, not from sorrow, but from gratitude. Without that first bird he would not have learned how to put the stick down. Without days with tear-wet eyes, he would not have learned to exhale long. He continues his day. Sweep a path just wide enough for 2 feet. Place bowls on the wooden shelf so rims are not chipped. Lower the heat of the stove before leaving the kitchen. Quietly sowing the haves, have seen, have named, have cared. Somewhere in the city you do the same. Answer a tough email with 1 honest sentence. Say, I am confused. Give me 24 hours. Walk around the block 6 minutes after dinner. Place your hand on your chest 3 beats before replying to something sharp. No one records you. No one awards medals. But by evening you notice the familiar chest tightness arrives late, stays shorter, departs quietly. Enough sign to believe the secret has shifted place. From a phrase in video titles into a skill etched into your hands. One other day, a student came with a letter saying he failed a subject. Eyes red, his voice blunt. I did my best. The teacher poured him tea and said, the phrase, I did my best, often comes with the second arrow. Try redrawing the map. Which effort belongs to you? Which to circumstances? Which to chance? Then pick 3 seeds, 1 for the body, 1 for words, 1 for heart, and so again next season. They made a plan, not grand. 6:45 a.m. drink water. Walk 10 minutes. 2 p.m. study group 50 minutes. 10:30 p.m. turn off devices. Also a failure box. So each week he writes down something he did not reach, names the feeling that came with it, pulls out a tiny corrective action. 3 months later, the thank you letter he sent to the temple did not boast of grades, even though they had improved. It said only, I no longer hate myself when I am tired. That is the real reward of ending suffering, not the world changing color, but the way you treat yourself changing in quality. Also truth. There will be days when all these skills misfire. You pull on the broken rope. You stir the basin of ash until it is cloudy. You shoot the second arrow faster than your breath that night. Instead of doubling your resolve as a punishment, you take out the golden lacquer. Right, today I stirred. Name, rush, anger, shame. Promise small. Tomorrow 8 o'clock breathe name, write one true sentence. Then sleep. The next morning. Do not demand inspiration, only mild discipline. So slight it is like a hair. Place both feet on the floor. Drink water. Exhale long. Do one real sentence. And you will hear in your chest a little click of the latch. That is the faint sound of endurance. The sort of sound no rousing music can substitute. At season's end, before the wind fully changes, the teacher gathered 4 items on a wooden table. A basin of settled ash, to remember to stop stirring, the gold-repaired porcelain bowl, to remember to give name to cracks, the rope, to remember holding just enough, the rope circle with 3 bricks, to remember stepping with rhythm. He added in the middle a small hourglass, grains falling evenly like January rain, and said, "Time is an ally for someone who learns to repeat. Each grain is a breath." A plain word, a small promise, enough grains. Even a desert becomes a way. The novice looked at the hourglass, saw in it you too. Whoever is reading this, perhaps rowing your paddle between a sharp current. If you want to drop 1 grain now, choose a threshold, a doorknob, light switch, seat belt, attach the 3 moves to it. And tonight before sleep, write a line of thanks for some sick little bird that once visited your life, because thanks to it you learned to lift your hand more gently. Breathe longer by half a beat, speak more truthfully, and love without tying knots. Those small acts, done repeatedly, will teach your body something known without needing to remember. Suffering retreats when acceptance is present. And each morning, when your foot touches the floor, that phrase ceases being just a slogan. It becomes a new elasticity in your heart against the arrows life sends. By the end of summer into early autumn, when the leaves of the almond trees begin to trim edges of gold like someone lightly coloring pencils, the teacher led the novice up to the bell tower, a spot few pay attention to because people usually walk straight into the main hall. Up there, wind passing through wood boards made the sound of steady breathing, the bell silent like a sleeping hill. The rope tied to the striker hung loose like an unanswered question. The teacher placed his hand on the body of the bell, did not strike, just laid it like laying a hand on one's chest, said, "A bell rings because of wind or by human hand. But first, a bell is bell. A person is the capacity to know and breathe before being a title, a role, or an emotion. Remember this so that when wind rises, you do not confuse the wind for yourself." The novice closed his eyes, listened to sounds that were not loud, the sound of stillness, and for a moment understood in his body that practicing acceptance does not mean creating permanent silence, but giving wind a way through without becoming that wind. From above, looking down, the temple courtyard becomes a chessboard, people passing like silent pieces, each holding their own wind. You too are somewhere in that picture. Hand touching something, a doorknob, a mouse, a cup rim. Just remember, first you are the bell, then the sound. Leaving the bell tower, the teacher took the novice into the small room behind the scripture storehouse, where hung a thick rope connected to a light wooden striker, not the bell's striker, but a stop button. The teacher joked. He said, whenever a conversation is about to go off course, voice rising, heart racing, eyes harsh, whoever notices first pulls the stop button. Stop for 90 seconds. Exhale, name, promise small, then continue talking. This simple convention saves more relationships than 1,000 pieces of advice. The novice immediately thought of the couple at the market, the student afraid of failing, himself in moments wanting to force reality. You too can tie an invisible stop button at home, a signal phrase, give me a minute please, a temporary retreat place, balcony, sink, windowsill, a 90-second sequence. Do not expect it to make the world fair. Just expect it to make you fairer with yourself. Reduce half the force in you always, increase half the force toward I am. Late afternoon, teacher brought a tray of fine sand out to the porch. Ask the novice to draw a circle with its edge, then slowly sprinkle colored grains to make a simple mandala. 4 wind petals, 8 small petals, and just as the pattern becomes pleasing enough to hesitate, he said, now blow softly. The novice hesitated, then blew. The colored petals scattered. The form dissolved into specks. The teacher smiled. Beauty does not disappear. It merely changes place. That is the lesson. Do not cling, but do not grasp, but care. Do not fear loss, but train the ability to start again. You can practice this in small scale. Take a photo of your tidy desk. Then only after tidying, delete it. Finish a document. Smile. Then allow yourself to revise from the beginning if needed. Love someone by being present and having boundaries, ready to release when time comes. Keeping the skill alive. Breed, name, promise. That night, the novice opened his notebook and the teacher asked him to add a new section at the end. 3 wins of today. Not the usual 8 wins of prestige, praise, criticism, etc. But the 3 actual currents that touched him. A gentle wind, someone said thanks. A reverse wind, someone misunderstood. A side wind, neither good nor bad, just tiring. For each wind he wrote a line about how he turned the paddle. After 1 month, he noticed his hands more used to turning angle than pushing straight. And when this habit spreads down to the feet, he stumbled less, not because there was less in the room, but because his eyes had seen the corners. One early humid morning, the woman who had taken her mother for a medical trip returned to the temple with a warm bag of rice cakes. She sat, her smile thin as gold leaf. My mother is not much better, but I stir less, so home is less murky. She said now each evening as she comes home from work, she walks around the house 5 minutes, breathing out evenly as she counts steps, entering home placing hand gently on her mother's shoulder, naming her own emotion out loud so she does not misplace tired into anger. Then she makes a small promise with the whole family. 7 p.m. dinner, 9:30 rest, 10:30 sleep. 3 anchors for them all to hold. She does not use the word acceptance, but she is doing the hardest part, shifting paddle's angle whenever the current changes. You read and feel warmth, because that is proof. The secret is not in the temple. The secret is in the hands of ordinary people. One later day, a woodworker came by the temple asking to borrow a plane to shave down a warped plank. He said, straight wood is dead wood. Curved wood is living wood. Plane it by your will. The plank will crack. Plane it by the grain. The plank will be obedient. Those words sounded philosophical dressed in work clothes. Working with the grain of life. Exhale half a beat long. Name what is present. Care what you can. The plank obeys, but if we force the grain to change course, the only certain sound is the crack of splitting wood. The novice took the plane, made thin shavings. The grain revealed like the fingerprint of time. You, reading this, possibly also hold an invisible plane over your own work. Try gliding it lightly. Follow the grain. Do not race someone else's speed. Right rhythm, right direction, right pressure. The board will lie flat in time. There are also days when the novice asked his teacher, what if I do enough and bad things still come? The teacher smiled. Then you bruise less by the second arrow, and you still have strength enough to hold someone who needs holding. Then he told the story of a mother carrying a sick child into the temple looking for rest. That mother did not ask, why? She asked, what now? The teacher said, eat 1 bowl of rice. Sleep 20 minutes. Then call a doctor. She did this. The child stayed ill, but the mother had enough strength to follow guidance. Many months later, she sent back the plastic spoon she had once brought to the temple into the already past photo shelf, with a tag that read, "I tried to hold." A result: fear, losing my child, caring, eating, sleeping, calling, few words. Many tears, and oddly, in those tears there was strength. You need not face a great tragedy to train this ability. You can begin with something small: a lost contract, a missed vehicle, a quarrel. Ask, what is right now in my power? Do one thing. Breathe one breath. Promise one action. Let the rest go to wind. Then came the time the novice himself had to take an exam. The night before, he felt the must win rising along with the fear of shame, two snakes coiling together. He opened his 12-minute worry box, wrote down worry until it was out, closed the lid, walked around the courtyard 8 laps, exhaled half a beat longer, placed hand on chest, named fear, promised tomorrow 5:30 a.m. wake, 5:40 drink water, 6 o'clock review 3 main topics, then slept. Next day, there was a question he had not studied for. His heart skipped a beat. But his hand was not trembling because he was used to turning the paddle. He did what he knew, left what he did not, wrote one honest line at the end: I did not cover this topic. Then submitted. The result was not perfect, but his heart gained a strand of resilience. The lesson was not on the paper. It was in nervous system that had learned rhythm. Wind blows, paddle turns, hold rope, put stick down. So that you have a pocket map for days ahead. The teacher copied onto a thin sheet of paper 5 statements, told the novice to pin it in a place often seen, and you can write them out right now. 1. I am the bell, not the wind. 2. Put down the stick before speaking the second sentence. 3. Turn the paddle, do not strike straight. 4. Name the emotion, one plain word. 5. Promise one small thing, with a time. Those 5 phrases will not make your world storm-free, but they make you a boat. A boat need not be large, only able to point its bow rightly in the wind. On a full moon night, temple bells sounded 3 slow strokes, each like a circle widening then dissolving in the night. The novice stood on the porch, looked at the slab where the very first birdcage stood, remembered the golden repaired bowl, the rope, the basin of ash, the fishing net, the boat, the pottery kiln, the already past shelf, the 90-second stop button, the bell remembering itself, all tools of a spiritual workshop. The teacher came beside him, quietly said, "You see, the secret was never in a spell. The secret is in a workshop of work, where every day you plane a little, repair a crack, shave a bit, bind again, know when to stop. Whoever keeps the workshop open, that person walks through seasons. You close your eyes for half a beat, maybe hear the workshop in yourself flick on. A corner of desk tidy enough, a water bottle full enough, a paper true enough, a heart enough knowing how to put down and hold up from tomorrow. If another sick little bird comes, a fragile project, a tiring relationship, a sensitive part of your body, you already have the essential tools to care without clinging, to love without shooting arrows. And the very moment your hand touches one of those ordinary tools, cup of water, door handle, seatbelt, let out an exhale longer by half a beat. Let the phrase that has led you this whole road become a muscle reflex. Suffering begins to retreat when acceptance starts being present. The next morning after the full moon, when dew still clung to grass and the last rays of moon were withdrawing from the pond like a chalkboard wiped clean just before class, the teacher called the novice out onto the porch, placed on the table a curious small metronome, its hand swinging, tick, 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 evenly like the heart of a sleeping cat. The teacher said not to teach music, but to point at what the novice had lived through these months. Everyone needs a rhythm to return to. Without rhythm, even capable hands will trip. With rhythm, clumsy hands also move rightly. Then the teacher turned off the metronome, pointed to the novice's chest. Your rhythm is not out there. The novice was still for a moment, suddenly seeing all the spiritual tools his teacher had suggested these past months: the settled ash basin, the golden repaired bowl, rope held just enough, the circle of 3 bricks, the paddle angled, the net with chosen mesh, the worry box, the already passed shelf, the 90-second stop, the bell remembering it is bell. All doing one job: rebuilding the rhythm inside so that every wind blowing by has ground beneath it without wrecking the house. From that day, the novice began to practice a very small but persistent routine. 3 times a day: when touching the door handle, stepping out in morning, when placing bowl down after lunch, when pulling the blanket up before sleep. He paused for half a beat, exhaled longer by half a beat, named one plain word: emotion, promised one small action with a time, the 3 markers like 3 tacks hammered into a flat board. So however many messages outside try to pull you off course, the board does not warp. And because life rarely gives us practice on a splendid stage, one day the temple received a large bag of rice that had torn. Grains spilled everywhere in the courtyard. The novice and several young men rushed to gather them. The more they gathered, the more spilled. Voices rose. The novice heard a pull inside him to force the situation. Get it done. Say it now. But remembered the paddle angle. He spoke one short sentence. Counted the beat in his head so as not to lash out. Divide tasks. 1 person ties bag. 2 people gather. 15 minutes rotation. Then bent down doing his share. 15 minutes later, far fewer grains on the ground. Voices quieter, not because anyone became saintly, but because there was a shared rhythm to grasp. The novice understood something the teacher never said plainly. Much suffering in a day does not come from what is heavy, but from a breakdown in rhythm, like a drum played off beat, resetting the beat with breath, with truth, with a small promise, is a repair you can make without needing to win. Midweek, someone in the neighborhood asked the temple to help make a short memorial for his father. When people gathered, everyone brought something unsaid, undone, unapologized. They did not need a complicated sermon. They just needed a platform to set things down without them smashing. The teacher set up a river stone jar. On a table put an empty glass jar and a bag of smooth stones. Each person came, picked 1 stone, whispered 1 truth into it. I fear. I regret. I am angry. I miss. Then dropped it into the jar. After 10 minutes, the jar was full of heavy but still clear, beautiful voices. The teacher said, "This is what we do with suffering. Give it weight and place." The novice looked at the jar, remembered the golden bowl. Give cracks a form. Give emotions a shape. Give memories a shelf. And for you, reading this, that jar could be a note in your phone, a small box on your desk, a voice recording you keep. What matters is not the container, but the repeated action of setting down. Each day drop 1 stone, so the heart does not have to carry the entire boulder. One evening he came home late, opened his room door, his whole being stretched tight like a pulled string. An old reflex wanted to pull further, scroll, eat quickly, turn on a string of videos, but his hand found the stop button in time. He leaned against the wall, counted 4 for 1 exhale longer, named exhausted, wrote by hand exactly 1 true line. Today I did more than I could, and promised 1 small thing: 10-minute warm bath. Sleep at 11:10 p.m. All the big problems still waited for tomorrow, but the damp heaviness in him eased like clothes being wrung out. He remembered the teacher saying, redirecting effort is not abandoning the battle, but choosing the front line, pulling back from the fight with reality in order to save strength for fights for what you cherish. The next morning, because he had kept his strength, he was able to call someone he needed to, write the apology he needed to write, and strangely, it was exactly that right softness that made hard tasks possible. By the end of the month, the teacher tried with the whole Sangha 4 anchor pulse pace for the day. Upon leaving bed, Anchor body, feet touching floor. Drink water. Before starting a difficult task. Anchor heart. Exhale half beat long. Name one plain word. Midday. Anchor words, one short true sentence. What part is mine? Before sleeping. Anchor meaning, a line of thanks and one small promise with time. He posted 4 words. Body heart words meaning, in 4 spots easy to see, beside the tap. At the edge of the table. At the screen. Head of the bed. 7 days passed without fireworks. Only a quiet steady growing like moss. The hard work was no easier. But he hurt himself less. People in the neighborhood tried too. Each picking 4 anchors for themselves. Doorknob. Steering wheel. Front gate latch. Electric kettle. And discovered the secret that the little bird story had promised was already in the most ordinary places. The spots our hands touch daily. One noontime rainstorm. Internet went out. Meeting left hanging. Urgent messages popped like corn in a pan. He felt his heart about to shoot the second arrow. It should have gone differently today. But the basin of ash settling came into his mind like a grayscale photograph. He put the stick down, turned off screen for 90 seconds. Looked out to the porch, counted 20 raindrops hitting the roof, then returned inside to send one true sentence. Temple's network is down. Reconnecting at 3:30 p.m. And that was it. Seemed small, yet saved the afternoon. He understood why the teacher liked village images so much. Basin, bowl, rope, net, boat, plane, bell, because during storms, tired hearts cling to concrete things. Philosophy high, reserved for sunshine. One autumn afternoon, wind sweeping up leaves into small piles. He sat on the porch step and copied down 7 times forgotten principles, each time forgetting. Just do over. Do not heap guilt. Each time stirring happens. Stand still half a beat. Let water settle. Each time the second arrow is drawn. Name it to lower the bow. Each time wishing to force reality. Turn the paddle. Each time a crack shows. Polish it with golden lacquer. Breathe, name, promise. Each time the net rips from trying to catch everything. Patch it with a written boundary. Each time noise wants dwelling. Pull the bell remembering you are bell. Those 7 statements are like 7 wooden rungs placed against a wall. Even if one rung breaks, another holds. Not to climb fast, just to have steps up. Then the teacher took him into a public library one clear day, among tall shelves. The smell of old paper like heated earth. The teacher pointed to a small sign. Please return books on time so others can read them too. And whispered. All the skills we practice are also about returning on time, our share of work to life. The novice smiled. Turns out, ending suffering also means not overstaying. Any emotion that comes must be returned when its time is up. Any story told enough must be folded. A day in which you do your part well, you give up the rest tonight. Stepping out of the library porch, he saw a little girl take a book, then return it to the correct shelf. A small act exactly like placing a brick back in place. Thus the path in one person's heart is preserved. Perhaps you now think, all this seems simple. Why is it hard when it is my turn? Precisely because when it is your turn, the wind does not blow on screen. It blows in chest. Water does not turn cloudy in basin. It clouds in eyes. So instead of seeking a lever great enough to lift the day, find 3 small support points. 1 still object to look at. 1 breath to stretch half a beat. 1 true sentence to open a way. Then make 1 promise with a time. After doing those 4, allow everything else temporarily to flow like water. If you forget this afternoon, do it tonight. If tonight forgot, do it in morning. The path does not accuse the lost step. It only waits for the footstep. And one day, when someone sits across from you, suffering in their eyes dense as drizzle, you will find your hand already pouring a warm cup of water. Placing it down, exhaling, saying a simple, I am here. Then asking, right now, what is the smallest thing you can do? Then you will know the secret has changed address. From slogan and video title to the rhythm in your chest. On the next dawn, sky like a thin paper someone smoothed, neither fully blue nor fully gray. Birds occasionally whispering, and in that quiet the teacher placed before him a tiny metronome. Its hand ticking. Tick, 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 evenly like the heart of a sleeping cat. The teacher said not to teach music, but to point to what the novice had lived these months. Everybody needs a rhythm to return to. Without rhythm, even able hands falter. With rhythm, clumsy hands also do right. Then the teacher turned off the metronome, pointed to the novice's chest. Your rhythm is not outside. The novice was still for a moment, suddenly seeing all the spiritual tools the teacher had guided all those months. The settled basin of ash, the golden repaired bowl, rope held just enough, circle of 3 bricks, paddle angled, net with chosen mesh, worry box, already passed, shelf, stop button 90 seconds, bell remembering being bell. All doing one job. Rebuilding the rhythm inside so every wind passing by has ground underneath without tearing down the house. From that day, the novice began to practice a very small but persistent routine. 3 times a day. When touching the door handle, stepping out in the morning. When placing bowl down after lunch. When pulling blanket over before sleeping. He stands still half a beat. Exhales longer by half a beat. Names a plain word emotion. Promises one small action with a time. The 3 anchors like 3 tacks pinned into a flat board. So however many messages outside try to pull you off course, the board does not warp. And because life seldom provides rehearsal on a grand stage, one day the temple received a large sack of rice whose bag's string broke. Grains spilled everywhere. He and a few young men rushed to gather. The more they gathered, the more spilled. Voices rising. He felt the urge to force through. Make it right now, but remembered the paddle angle. He spoke one short sentence. Counted the beat in his head so he would not lash. Split in 2 lines, 1 to tie the bag, 2 to gather. Rotate every 15 minutes. Then stoop to do his share. 15 minutes later, far fewer grains on the courtyard. Voices quieter, not because anyone became gentle, but because there was a shared rhythm to hold on to. He understood something the teacher had always taught indirectly. Most suffering in a day does not come from what is heavy, but from rhythm breaking, like a drum struck off beat, resetting the beat with breath, with truth, with a small promise, is a repair you can make without needing to win. In the days that followed, life did not abate because one rain had stopped. Temple papers had glitches. A help fund transferred slowly. In the neighborhood, someone ill had to go to the provincial hospital. The novice followed the teacher into the waiting room. The smell of antiseptic mixing with the crackling loudspeaker, where time stretched like candy. There, the practice of placing the stick down had to change language to match plastic chairs. Exhale half a beat when the number called jumps wrong. Name, worry, when the doctor passes without stopping. Promise small. In 10 minutes I will drink water and open the window to breathe. And one additional gesture. Place a hand on the shoulder of the companion as one places a stone on a table so paper will not fly away. He realized there are places in one's life hospital too. The hours waiting an email, waiting a call, waiting a result. And there you need not win over time. You only need to brace a few anchor points. Long exhale. A plain word, a promise with time. Another afternoon. Clouds like fine sifter dust across the sky. The teacher gave the novice the task he feared most, leading a group of newcomers at the temple in the practice. 7 breaths, 3 sentences, 1 promise. His hands cold, like a bowl washed under the tap. His mind ready to spit the phrase, I am not ready. But in that moment he heard the invisible tick, tick of the metronome inside his chest. He exhaled half a beat, named fear, and promised, say 1 true sentence to begin. So he spoke, I am afraid, and I begin from here. The group smiled softly because they were allowed to be human. He continued, now everyone exhale half a beat more than usual. Place hand on chest to remember that the body has doors. Then he told the story of the sick little bird in the simplest words, no many words, no mysterious tone, and the strange thing was, the simpler he spoke, the gentler faces became. After that session, he saw fear remained, but changed substance, from a monster in darkness to a sleepy kitten on the chair. You too can try this with someone close. Say one brief true sentence about how you feel before going into the main matter. And then hold rhythm with your breath. You do not need remove all anxiety. Just lower its volume so your hands can still do work. Then came a more exacting trial than the practice classes. Another stormy night. Louder. Roof tiles of the kitchen row came loose. Water poured as if someone tipped a whole well onto the porch. The stove flame extinguished. Rice wet. The dirt road muddy. In that instant, pride wanted to burst. I should have guarded more. Self-blame threatened to overflow. My fault for leaving tarpaulin loose. And the desire to find someone to blame like an arrow lodged. He stood frozen for half a beat. Heard the second arrow cocking. Put the bow down by naming exactly. Regret, anger, exhaustion. Then pulled the red string. Move the stove to dry area. Spread mat for the elders. Shift pots to charcoal fire. The green string. Call roofing team. Ask children to clear the gutters. The white string. Accept that tonight's meal will not be like usual. And in that wet scene, something almost absurd occurred. The air of cooperation rose like warmth under a shared blanket. No one shouted more because there were small tasks enough to do. By dawn, though many things were still not right, the heaviness in chest had receded by half. He understood, ending suffering is not no bad happens, but no longer coping by bruising oneself. The day after the storm, when sun exposed the first rays over the courtyard, the teacher told him to visit the old clockmaker down the lane, a man whose hand knows how to hear the ticking. The old man dismounted the back of a wall clock, showed him a broken gear and said, "A clock does not stop because time hates you. It stops because one gear is broken. Replace the gear. The whole mechanism returns to rhythm." That sentence drove a nail into his mind. Life is not opposing you. Just one gear needs replacing, a habit of lateness, a missing hour of sleep, a should have, and replacing a gear does not need declarations. Just pliers, nail, patience. The old man gave him a small spring, saying bring this home as a good luck charm, not to hang up, but to remind. Too tight it breaks, too loose it fails, hold just enough. He placed the spring on his windowsill. Every time his eyes pass it, it reminds, hold just right. Life, as it does, continued to test by very human things. A young friend in the neighborhood lost their scholarship plan because one document had wrong seal. They sat on the porch like a leaf pressed by rain. He came to sit beside. Not quick to offer advice, just poured water, handed the 12-minute worry box. Both wrote. After 12 minutes he asked the teacher's favorite question, right now. What is the smallest thing you can do? The friend said, call back the school. Ask for proper seal. He nodded. When? 3 p.m. today. Okay. If after that call you need to cry, cry 10 minutes here and then go home. They smiled at this strange courtesy to tears. That evening, the document was not immediately fixed, but the friend walked home with a straighter back. He watched. Saw on tile path narrow strips of sun like narrow blades, a slim path. But enough. And he thought of you, someone whose plan also just broke, that maybe you do not need a highway. You need a trail just wide enough for 2 feet, one call, one true sentence, 1 hour of sleep, one meal, and then exhale half a beat more. In the week of roof repair, he learned another lesson. Slow to catch up with myself. Instead of trying to carry 2 roof tiles at once as the habit, efficiently, he carried 1 tile, placed it, breathed, looked, adjusted, placed the next. At first people teased, over careful. By afternoon they tired teasing. While he still worked steadily. Turns out, on time does not mean fast. On time means step with your own rhythm so you arrive at the right place. That night, in yellow lamplight, he wrote in his notebook, have seen, wanting to prove, have named, eagerness, have cared. Move each tile one by one, and he found himself smiling at the word, eagerness, looking straight at it like seeing a child tugging at adult's sleeve. Look at me. And the adult placing hand on child's head. I see you. And the child stops tugging. One weekend morning, the temple opens gate for a class called Rest While Working. More people show than expected. All kinds of tiredness. He stands before the porch holding not the lesson plan but a basin of water. He dips hand in. Fingers splaying cold. Then lifts slowly so each drop falls like an inverted hourglass. The group silent because watching water fall easier than looking into one's heart. He says, rest is not ceasing work. Rest is returning oneself to rhythm. Then invites everyone to stand and sweep the courtyard along the tile lines. Each one a narrow path just wide enough for 2 feet. Sweep your own path, and when done you are done. 10 minutes later the courtyard is not spotless. But everyone can breathe one breath deeper. He concludes, tomorrow. At home, if your heart is tangled, sweep a path. Path from sink to door. Path from door to window. Enough for you to pass through without stepping in mud. Then came a rare quiet day, season shifting. Gentle wind, fewer people. The teacher did not assign a task, just sat with him under the almond tree, and asked, what have you learned if I leave a month? He looked at his hands. I know how to build rhythm myself. Know how to pull the right string. Know to name before speaking the second sentence. Know to place the stick down before throwing judgment. And, know I will forget and be able to return. The teacher nodded. Enough so you can care a sick little bird without locking it. Then he stood, dusted off his robe, like a craftsman putting away his tools after work. In that silence the novice heard clearly the familiar click-click inside, latch door aligning. And he suddenly remembered you reading. Perhaps in you too there just rose such a sound. A sound not praised by anyone but trustworthy. One day when the teacher really had to leave for a few days to attend a Dharma gathering in a neighboring district, the temple entrusted duties to the novice. On the first day, an old man drunk came making noise. A young woman cried in the hall. A child scraped his knee. 3 winds at once. The novice felt his inner rhythm shift off by a notch. But he managed to pull it back using the 4 anchors the teacher taught him. Touch the ground, drink water, exhale, name. He led the old man onto the porch, let him sit in soft shade, poured him water, did not argue. He guided the young woman to the steps, lent her the 12 minutes worry box, then set a time to talk about her real story. He cleaned the child's scrape, using the tone of cat stories and leaves, washing the wound and speaking so tears change form. After doing all that, he sat on the porch step, his hands trembling slightly as after playing a long piece. He wrote in his journal, have seen, wanting to prove I'm good enough, have named, pressure, have cared. Divide tasks into 3 parts. Do them one by one. And he laughed alone because he understood something very small but very hard. Being good enough is not when you no longer tremble. Being good enough is when you tremble and still place the brick in the right spot. By now, the path you and the novice have been walking runs side by side long enough for words to settle into acts. If you want to lock this chapter with a single gesture, choose one ordinary object in your room, a glass of water, a doorknob, the cover of your notebook. Put your hand on it and let a breath out longer by half a beat pass through you. Say a plain word naming what is heaviest right now. Then promise one small thing with a time in the day, a call, a true sentence, a short walk, an hour of sleep, and continue. Seasons may change, the news may be bad, people may break their promises, but the rhythm you build remains. And every time life sends another, second arrow, should have, remember the hand that once placed down on the water. Remember the golden repaired bowl. Remember the rope held just enough. Remember the boat changed its angle. Remember the net not torn because you did not try to catch everything. Remember the 12-minute worry box closed on time. Remember the bell. You are bell, not wind. Wind will pass. Bell remains. And in the moment you hold that rhythm one more beat. The secret whispered by the bird story confirms again something so simple it is easy to forget. Suffering begins to retreat when you accept what is present, not bowing in defeat, but bowing to see clearly, so your hands can still tend what is theirs, so your heart remains calm enough to love without fastening more cords. Another dawn, when the smell of ripened rice drifted with wind through bamboo groves and street sound vendors' carts tapped on pavement like fingers strumming a guitar. The temple suddenly became the center of a strange wind. Someone from the neighborhood posted an awkward rumor about aid donation. Sentences unstable like floodwater. Readers ready to speak without breathing. Listeners ready to judge without hearing. The novice, opening the phone, felt his chest tighten like an overwound spring. The instinct to strike straight flared up. To write a long rebuttal. To call each person. To pull out proof like shields. Then in that hurry, a set of spiritual tools lit up together. The invisible tick, tick of the inner metronome. The golden bowl reminding, name the crack before you mend. The rope reminding, hold just enough to pass strength. The circle of 3 bricks appearing on his mental screen. He placed the phone down like setting the stirring stick out of the basin. Stood up, let his feet touch ground with a walk around the porch. Exhaled half a beat long so his heart stopped pounding blindly. Named anger, fear, injustice, so the second arrow dropped from his hand. Then sat at table and wrote exactly 3 sentences. 1 fact, today temple received. Amount, leftover. 1 time commitment. 3:30 p.m. this afternoon temple opens accounts for anyone to review. 1 invitation to dialogue with boundary, if anyone wants clarity. Let us meet 7 o'clock to 8 p.m. on the porch. Each for 10 minutes, posted it, turned off the device, poured water. That afternoon people came, some heated, some shy, some just curious. He placed the river stone jar in center of the table, saying any who wish to speak drop a smooth stone into the jar after whispering a true sentence, I doubt. I fear funds misused. I am upset because I was not told. So hard sentences have a softer place to land, reviewing accounts, answering questions, scheduling follow-ups, and when the time came, he pulled the 90-second stop button for the next round, not to avoid, but to keep rhythm. By night, the rumor had not vanished entirely, but its claws were dulled. The change was not on the bulletin board but just under the sternum. He was not swept away. And you, having been pulled into stormy winds of messages, you too can do exactly this. 3 short statements, 1 fact. 1 time-bound commitment. 1 invitation to dialogue. Then set device down. Exhale half a beat. Let the rest go to the wind. A few days later, when things had settled and people in the neighborhood were busy again with food and sleep, his body suddenly signaled in its own way, fever. A message without writing but urgent. Sore muscles like red underlined lines, heavy eyelids like bold print. For the first time in months, he became his own, sick little bird. Strangely, the 4 anchor points of body-heart words meaning still tugged to take charge. Wanting to overcome illness by schedule. Wanting to win against tiredness by will. Wanting to keep promises to others before keeping promises to his body. But what he learned began speaking up. The pottery kiln tells, too much heat breaks. Too little heat leaves the clay raw. Correct heat causes beautiful cracks. Today the correct heat is a 25-minute nap. Warm water, postponing a non-urgent appointment. Asking someone else to cook. The net reminds. Mesh for rest must close tightly, device off at 11 p.m. though tasks remain. The hourglass reminds. Each grain is a breath. Do not demand the desert change in one night. And the spring on the windowsill reminds, hold just enough. He picked up the phone and wrote one true sentence to 3 people. Today I have fever. Please forgive that I delay. Until responses were not anger but rest well. I will handle that part. I will bring porridge, as though the whole neighborhood had learned lesson of placing effort in right places. That night, he opened the 12-minute worry box for himself for first time. Wrote out all the should haves. He wanted to fire, should not be sick now. Should have finished that task until minute 12. Then closed the lid, set it aside, turned off lights. Morning came, fever still there, but the habit of stirring less had quieted. And you, who often come last in your own care, might try same this week. Postpone a non-urgent meeting. Ask someone for help. Sleep 1 hour earlier. Set a device off lock. Call out guilt when it creeps in. Remind it has a seat. Your body needs not that you are mighty. Body needs that you are kind. When harvest time came, the rice field in front of the temple bent in unison like a class released for recess. The teacher returned from his trip to the district, walked with the novice along the edge of the rice paddies, feet sinking into warm straw smell. The teacher said, "Do you see? When rice is ripe, it bows. When a person is strong, they are also gentle. Suffering withdraws not because you become rigid, but because you know how to bend at the right time." They stopped by a stump. The teacher pinched a single rice grain, squeezed gently. The grain separated, its young seed fragrant. Over this past season, you have learned many forms: the basin of ash, the golden bowl, the rope, circle of bricks, the kiln, net, boat, clock, worry box, the shelf of already past, the stop button. In truth, these are many doors into one room, the room of acceptance. In that room you build your workshop. Each day repair a little, mend a crack, plane a bit, bind a bit, rest at the right moment. This workshop is enough so you pass a season without shooting arrows at yourself again. He nodded, understanding why skilled craftsmen speak little. They speak through how they hold their tools. And you, at the threshold of a new season, can also build your small workshop tonight. Pick 3 spots to hang tools: doorknob, work desk, bedside. Hang there, each one action only. Exhale longer by half a beat. Name a plain word. Promise a small thing with a time. Do this 7 nights. And you will hear more clearly the click of the latch inside your door snapping into place. At harvest comes another refrain: farewells. Some people in the neighborhood move away for work. Some elders are taken to stay in the city. Some children stop being children. He opens again the already past shelf, puts there a school desk key the girl sent with a note: "Thank you for letting me sit on your porch to study." A handkerchief of the woodworker who repaired the old plane. A dry rice stalk from the young man who returned to care for his mother. On each card he writes 3 lines like unwritten law of beautiful farewells. Have tried to keep something. Fear that surfaced. Have cared for what part. Then he burns one thin incense stick. Not an elaborate ritual. Smoke flows upward like one word. Yes. Flowing straight. And when he turns away, the courtyard is unchanged. Only that there are extra, golden lines on the glaze of life. And his heart has another habit. Not holding people hostage. Just keeping the skill behind. You look around your room. There is likely something asking to be placed on your already past shelf. An old pair of shoes from a relationship. A bill from a dream that tried. A ticket from a road once traveled. Write 3 lines and place it there. To free your hands for the new season. One clear morning, he sat alone in the bell tower. The teacher had told him to come up here whenever he wanted to hear, "I am the bell, not the wind." And for the first time he did not wait for wind. He did not strike the bell. He only laid the palm of his hand on the cold bell body. Exhaled longer by half a beat. And realized the sound of stillness is not dead silence like cement. It is warm like the forehead of a feverish person coming down. He smiled because he understood. Peace is not absence of events. Peace is having rhythm, and rhythm is not a luxury far away. Rhythm is the 3 actions in any person's reach. Exhale, name, promise. Then he thought of you, not knowing whether you were at a ferry landing or in a waiting room, in a wave of viral rumors or in a farewell harvest, but certain that you are holding some tool of your life. Just put it down for half a beat to hear your heartbeat. You will know which red string to pull, which green string to adjust, to bow before the white string, and when you finish your small task for today, you have the right to turn off lights half an hour early. Put your phone face down like setting the stirring stick aside, and trust in the simple that has become reflex. Suffering starts to retreat when acceptance is present, not with whining, not with grand gestures, just an ordinary person knowing how to place a hand on chest, naming what is overflowing, doing what is in hand, and letting the rest flow without turning yourself into a flood. Then one morning there was a soft autumn wind like a thin sheet of silk laid over the sun. The teacher asked him to go down to the bus stop to help an elderly grandmother go to city for eye check. The asphalt road glistened after nighttime rain, puddles in potholes like small mirrors mixing sky and power lines. The bus came. People pushed. The conductor's calls, go, go, go. In his heart a tangle of small emotions. Worry the bus might be late. Fear the doctor might be strict. Guilt because there was work in the temple. And the moment his hand meant to grab phone to check more info, he heard invisible metronome. Tick, tick, tick. Remembered the 3-string wood piece. Remembered the golden bowl. Remembered the tilting boat. So he set aside his phone like laying down a stirring stick. Bowed to the grandmother. Guided her onto the bus. Chose a seat by the window so wind would not be stifled. And before the bus rolled, he closed eyes, exhaled half a beat longer, named the 3 simple words. Worry, fear, tired. Promised one small thing with time. 9:30 at hospital. 11:45 lunch. 2 o'clock call temple back. Then opened eyes to behold a streak of sunlight slanting through the window like a ruler laid across the day. The city met them with buildings casting long shadows like sermons that had been stretched too far. Hospital receiving them by impatient digits on electronic boards. Smell of floor cleanser mixing with antiseptic congealing into the scent of time flattened. He held the red string in hand, asked at the counter, took a number, found a seat, poured water, and let the white string, the rhythm of the system, run in its way. Between both ends he strung the green string by a true sentence with the grandmother. We may wait long. I am here. Hand on her back, palm wrinkled softly like putting a stone on a stack of papers. When it came time, the doctor said surgery was necessary but not immediately. The grandmother went quiet like a person who heard their own name called out of a dream. He heard in chest the second arrow wanting to shoot, if only appointment had been sooner. He named it, regret. Exhaled half a beat again. Asked the teacher's question, right now, what is the smallest thing I can do? Then they bought medication. Ate hot rice. Called her daughter. Scheduled a follow-up, writing back. Bus slowed in traffic. Grandmother dozed like an old leaf excepting lying still in the lap. He watched the trees recede behind and thought of you, writing your own coach called, Work Family Body, that the hardest thing is not to run fast, but to keep rhythm so you do not shoot arrows at yourself whenever the route diverges. That night, back at temple, he washed his face, cleaned his hands, opened the have journal, wrote slowly. Have seen, impatience, have named, regret, have cared, promised time, eat, sleep. Words fell like rain on a metal roof, simple, steady. In days after, life piled on tricky errands. In the neighborhood a young couple decided to separate. The 5-year-old child said, my fault, too many times. A bricklayer friend fell from scaffolding and broke his arm. The roofers quoted more than expected. He suddenly felt like standing in a market full of wind and smoke, where each stall is another sick little bird. And if hurried, his hand would reach into every cage. Teacher said, tomorrow, try build a rest stop, like a bus stop in your heart, for each event that arrives. Give it a seat. Read the hour schedule. Do not pull it into the garage of fixing the whole world. Then he gave A5 paper with 3 pre-drawn columns. Arrived. Seen. Cared. Told him to stick it by his desk. Each issue gets only 1 line. Next morning he did just that. 8:10. Child T. Seen. Self-blame. Cared. 16:30 Walk with father. Teach father to say, it's not your fault. 10 o'clock. Mr. H broke arm. Seen. Worry. Cared. Ask assistance at noon. 1400. Roof tile. Seen. Frustration. Cared. Talk openly. Suggest plan B. 1900. Myself tired. Seen. Exhausted. Cared. Device off 2300. By evening paper was full, but heart unbroken. Not because things had all been done, but because each issue had a place to sit. He understood, ending suffering is the art of placing seats for sorrow to sit, rather than letting it roam wild in the house and you. If you are in a week with many sick little birds, you may quietly draw a A5 and stick it beside your screen. Give each thing a time-assigned seat. Then return to your hands just in front. One sudden rainstorm night, like pages being flipped too fast. Temple kitchen smoked with burnt rice because the one on duty juggled 3 tasks at once. He walked in. Reflex wanted to judge. Should have. But stop button lit in mind like a red light at intersection. He counted 4 for an exhale. Named discomfort. Lowered the bow. Pulled red string. Scoop out burnt rice. Soak the rest. Salvage what can. Call kitchen help. While doing so, he told a story of a famous chef teaching students how to save burnt rice. First turn off the flame, then rescue. The kitchen laughed. The fire in throat dulled. The dinner imperfect, but no one skipped. He wrote in journal. Have seen. Wanting to prove. Have named. Discomfort. Have cared. Turn off flame before rescue. And in moment of closing the journal, he felt a simple but enduring truth. Many of mental accidents do not come because life is cruel, but because we try to save rice before we turn off flame. Next month, teacher assigned him to teach in a small tailor shop in town. Place of hands with needles and threads. He came in lunch break. Saw hands dry like freshly washed cloth under the sun. He did not speak much of philosophy. He taught one exercise, 90-second stitch, for the shop. Let shoulders drop. Put non-dominant hand on chest. Exhale half beat long. Name, pain. Uneasy, tired. Promise a small act with time, lights off 10:30 p.m. Then, stitch. After 1 week, supervisor wrote, no one works faster, but fewer people cry without reason. He read and smiled because that is the kind of progress the workshop accepts. Fewer arrows shot at self. If you are in a workshop of different kind, office, shop, class, you might ask your group try 90-second stitch before hard meeting, before busy shift, before test. There will be no magic, just a small cloud opening over heads enough that everyone breathes 1 notch deeper. One almost cloudless morning, teacher spread a tarp in front of Temple Gate, placed on it 12 items that have appeared in the story: basin of water, golden bowl, rope, circle of bricks, paddle, fishing net, hourglass, spring, stop button, worry box, already past shelf, 3-string wood piece. Invited neighborhood children to play. Choose a tool. Each child picks 1 object. Tells in their own words when this tool is used. Then performs a very short scene. The child holding basin acts silent. Place the stick down to see water clear. The child with golden bowl tells, apology. I broke mother's bowl and speak truth. The one with net speaks about turning off phone at 9:30. The paddle one about, after an argument with younger sibling, turn away to fetch water before speaking. Adults stand watching. Smiling and learning, he looks. Suddenly sees a simple future. If children learn, place stick down, along with alphabet. World will have less murky water, and if adults mindful, polish gold before speaking second sentence. World will have fewer bowls broken, and you, though you do not stay at Temple Gate, can lay out 12 tools, invisible in your home by small reminders. A note, screen off at 11 o'clock, stuck by bed, net. A glass jar as river stone jar. On desk, truth container. A 1945 schedule for 12 minutes worry box. A cue, give me 90 seconds, posted in kitchen, stop button. A small hourglass beside work area, rhythm. An already passed shelf for old stories. 3-string wood piece reminder of strings. One day, when the season had shifted to thin winter, the teacher said a sentence that framed everything. All tools exist only for you to do what your heart must. Care without clinging. Release without abandoning. The rest depends on the wind. And as if to test that sentence right away, a message arrived. The man who once spread the old rumor came back to apologize, wanting to contribute a little money to the temple fund. The novice read it. In his chest 2 birds stirred, one satisfied, one guarded. He exhaled half a beat, named both, promised one small thing. Meet at 5:30. Check the account book, say thanks if fitting, and did exactly that. The meeting took place in the slightly cold evening light. The man looked downward more than upward, voice trembling like someone learning to row. The novice placed the river stone jar on the table, invited him to drop in a stone with a true sentence. The man said, I fear being deceived, so I spoke poorly. The novice nodded, opened the book, pointed to each line, acknowledged his own responsibility in being slow to publish information, said thanks, accepted a small donation in the agreed time window. When he saw the man off at the gate, wind passed through the almond leaves. Yellow leaves fell unperturbed. The novice knew a crack had just been polished with a golden line, not grand, not needing a loudspeaker. That night, he went up into the bell tower, placed his hand on the cold bell body, did not strike it, heard the sound of stillness below. The bamboo cage hung no longer inside the room but on the porch as a living reminder, not to imprison, but to remember, open when it is time. He thought of the first sick little bird, of seasons past, of people who had gone, and of you, the one reading, perhaps placing your hand on some ordinary object in the room, and silently said, we do not need more miracles, we need to remember the rhythm. Remember to place the stick down. Remember to name. Remember to promise small. Then he descended the wooden stairs, footsteps soft as the ticking of a clock passing another mark. Tomorrow morning, he would carry out his small tasks, carry the basin of water, sweep a path just 2 feet wide, open the door, pour tea, answer an email with one true sentence, teach a child to pivot the paddle before speaking loudly, set a 12-minute worry at the proper time, and before sleep, turn off the device at the promised time, place his hand on his chest, exhale half a beat longer, speak a plain word about the weather inside, promise one small thing for the next day, because in the end, the secret the sick little bird revealed is not found somewhere else but in the habit tender enough to repeat. Each time a should have arrow is raised, place the bow down. Each time water becomes muddied, stop stirring. Each time wind changes, pivot the paddle. Each time a crack shows, polish it with gold. And each time you forget, and you will forget, return by the old 3 words that still work. Have seen, have named, have cared, the rest, let the wind carry. The next morning, the north wind barely touched the almond trees outside the gate like a cautious greeting. The teacher called him to the well, gave him an old compass still trembling slightly whenever your hand turns direction. He placed the compass on the mouth of the well so it stood still. Then said, look long until the needle returns north without being touched. And he whispered as if into the collar, a heart has its own north, when the winds of life blow. The first thing is not to chase after a misaligned needle, but to place your body on a solid plane. Exhale half a beat longer. Name the wind blowing. Then wait for the inner needle to find its direction. From that compass he suddenly understood why for so many seasons the teacher taught only small actions, because that is how you set the plane so the needle returns. That day he carried the compass all day like a reminder. When the bricklayer with a hurt hand asked about hospital fees, he let the needle settle with a slow breath before saying a true sentence and promising time to call for aid. When a child knocked over a water jug, he let the needle settle by placing a hand on its shoulder and saying accidents happen before grabbing the rag. When a sharp message appeared in the inbox, he let the needle settle by looking out the porch. Counting 30 fallen leaves, responding with a sentence that blamed none. That night, back in the bell tower, he wrote in his wool-worn journal 3 slow lines. Have seen, my heart spinning like a wheel. Have named, I wanted more. I felt restless. Have cared, kept to appointment. Had hot meal, slept hours enough. Under the 3 lines he drew a small upward arrow to remind himself that north is in the chest, not on someone else's map. The next day, the teacher presented a small but powerful game. He scattered a little sand on the table, then placed between the sand a golden repaired bowl and a small stone. He very gently spun the table so the sand would drift in circles. The bowl stayed still because it was heavy and because the plane was stable. The stone rolled in every direction like a will to force life to obey. The teacher smiled and said, "You do not need to be the heavy bowl. But you must not live like a stone easily pushed. You only need a bit of gentle discipline." 3 simple actions repeated on time. Morning, touch floor and drink water. Midday, exhale longer by half a beat, then write a true sentence for something difficult. Night, switch off devices at promised time and place hand on chest to feel. Do enough nights. You will hear better the click of the latch inside a lining. And to test it right away. That afternoon a small quarrel lit in the neighborhood over misunderstanding a joke. Anger flared like dry firewood. He stepped in with no philosophy but with a basin of water. Invited everyone to drink a sip. Asked for 12 minutes of worry in a box. 90 seconds for someone upset to walk the porch. 1 honest sentence from everyone before speaking further. 20 minutes later, what remained was a plan to meet again to undo the tangled knot. Perhaps you think it is not magic. He thought so too. But he knew that those little things kept the rhythm of an afternoon from shattering. Days later, cold clouds gathered. Temple full of guests. Kitchen busy. Courtyard wet. He moved through places requiring hands without the old harshness. Because every time his heart wanted to run ahead of hands, he added a bit of the gentle discipline. For first time in many months he saw clearly. Peace is not reward of an easy day, but a byproduct of a day with rhythm. That night he did not read another page of book. He only placed hand on chest. Looked at tree shadows on the ceiling. Named the inner weather with 1 simple word and promised a small task with time for dawn. Then slept. And when you're reading this right now, perhaps you are sitting by a window. Outside may be city lights or bamboo shadows. In your hand may be a glass of water or a door handle. Whatever it is, use it as the plane for your needle to return. Exhale half a beat longer. Let the second arrow drop from your hand. Write a true sentence so tomorrow has a beginning. Then turn off your device at the time you promised. Because the secret the sick little bird entrusted is really just this ordinary reminder. Suffering begins to retreat when you accept what is present, not giving up, but standing still for half a beat where you are, so your hands can carry their part, and letting the rest drift with the wind. The next morning the sky seemed a little lower, like someone had drawn a thin curtain near the roof eaves. In that dimness the teacher placed on the table an old bronze mirror, its edges mottled green with age. He told the novice to use a soft cloth and a drop of warm water to slowly wipe its little rings, not to make it shine immediately but so the hand would remember the rhythm. Then he had him look into the mirror while it was still speckled, to recognize his face still showing clearly amid the blurred spots. And he said, "When life is muddy, you do not wait for everything to be shiny to see what must be done. What matters is keeping the center still reflective." Just then children's voices rose from the courtyard. calling to each other because a paper kite was caught in the top of the areca palm. The string was pulled tight like a sentence trying to win. The novice brought over a chair, but it lacked one rung. Some adult impatiently suggested cutting off the top of the palm. The teacher shook his head and said, "Try changing the angle instead." The novice stepped back a few paces, loosened his grip, and gently lifted the string in rhythm with a breath, and the kite came down from the frond like a relieved sigh. The kids applauded. The teacher simply smiled, watching the string soften in the novice's hand, as though restating an old lesson. Hold just enough so luck has room to enter. That afternoon the novice went into town to buy some mung beans for the kitchen. He passed a vendor woman arguing loudly with a customer about weight. Words flew like two boats colliding. He stood at a distance, placed a hand on his chest, exhaled longer by half a beat to steady himself, then approached and asked, "Do you want to borrow the temple's scale to weigh again?" His small question caused both to pause for a breath, and in that pause the vendor's tone softened. The customer acknowledged he had spoken harshly. The dispute resolved with a light, "Thank you." It was like ash falling precisely into place. That evening, the teacher brewed Old Lotus tea and taught a simple ritual. Pour enough for yourself before pouring for others, not selfishly, but as a reminder that every hand needs warmth before holding something heavy. He had the novice pour slowly, noticing, if the hand trembles with fatigue, the tea overflows the rim. In his mind rose the day he was sick, the days he postponed, the times he asked others for help, and thus today he could pour one more cup for someone else. Early the next day, a chilly wind from the fields. The teacher took him down to the post office, where people lined up with faces of waiting carved like wood grain. There the rhythm of acceptance had to be practiced in a very specific sentence. "Please give me a number because I am afraid I will miss the call." And a very specific action. "Take the pen and write the address down ahead of time so when your turn comes you're not fumbling." The novice realized there are countless moments when great truths need only a small, well-timed sentence to open the door. At midday back at the temple, a skinny stray cat slept in an old straw basket. He placed a bowl of water beside it, quietly, neither stirring it nor petting. He had learned from the sick little bird that caring is not holding tight but placing where it is warm and safe. That night when the moon was a thin crescent hanging over bamboo, the teacher spoke of trust, not the slogans people shout, but the 3 small promises kept on schedule. The novice ticked off in his journal the appointments he had kept during the week. A call on time, a reply sent in a day, turning off the device at the moment chosen. On paper the trust seemed unremarkable, but it was like the golden lines on a repaired bowl, not flashy, but giving the bowl ability to continue holding new daylight. Dawn dew the next morning. The season's shift obvious in the chill air. The teacher brought the novice to the village hall where a class of little children were learning how to write letters. Each letter had a body, a belly, a stop at the end of the stroke. If they omitted the pause, the letter lost its center. The novice suddenly saw that same pause in breath is not slowing progress. The pause gives the pen a place to rest, a hinge for when the stroke must change direction. Just as in life, if we do not pause half a beat longer than usual, we will say excessive words or act too sharply. Later that afternoon some fuss came up in the neighborhood about an inheritance. Voices rose thick like black clouds. The novice placed the river stone jar on the table, invited each person to whisper into a stone one honest sentence before speaking further. 15 minutes passed. No miracles, but order came. At the moment things needed stopping, the teacher gently tugged the small bell's rope. A silent stop button. Everyone accepted postponing the discussion, knowing pulling further would tear the net. He cleaned up tea sets, crossed wet courtyard tiles, and felt his chest lighten as though an old load had been lifted. That night he returned to the bell tower, opened his compass, watched its needle swing for a moment, then settle pointing north. Then he understood. Peace does not come only from external steadiness, but from building small planes inside. a long exhale, a plain word, a promise with time, so that when the wind blows, the needle returns on its own. He thought of the ordinary tools, the mirror, the golden bowl, the soft string, the one small tasks kept, and he felt the grip of peace. He carried these small acts another day, delivering seed sacks to a farmer at the edge of the village. The mud road, fading sky. Halfway along he met a boy whose bicycle's chain had broken. The boy stood frozen, clutching the chain like it was part of his identity. The novice knelt, said simply, "It is broken." Asked, "Do you know someone who can help fix it?" The boy's small hands held the dirty chain like holding a broken promise. They fixed what could be fixed. The bike started rolling again. The boy waved and pedaled off without looking back. The novice stood watching the wet prints on the earth, thinking, acceptance is sometimes naming exactly the crack when it appears, then doing your part. The broken chain did not disappear, but the burden of it lessened. When harvest came, they bent like class dismissed for break. The teacher, returning from his trip, walked with the novice across the rice paddies, feet sinking in golden straw. He said, "Do you see? When the rice is ripe it bows. When someone is strong, they are gentle. Suffering withdraws not because you have hardened, but because you know when to bend." They paused by a stump. The teacher pinched a single grain, squeezed gently, the seed inside fragrant. He said, "All this past season you have learned many forms: basin of ash, golden bowl, rope, circle of bricks, the kiln, net, boat, clock, worry box, the shelf of stories already past, the stop button. But in truth these are many doorways into one room, the room of acceptance. In that room, you build your workshop. Every day repair a little, mend a crack, plane a bit, bind a bit, rest at the right moment. This workshop is enough so you cross a season without shooting arrows at yourself." He nodded. Skilled craftsmen speak little. They speak by how they hold their tools. And you, standing at the threshold of a new season, can also build your small workshop tonight. Choose 3 spots to hang tools: doorknob, workspace, bedside. Hang at each one a single action. Exhale longer by half a beat. Name a plain word. Promise something small with a set time. Do this for 7 nights, and you will hear more clearly the click of the internal latch aligning. The next morning was crisp, as if the sky were water just touched by wind, lowered like a thin veil over the porch. The teacher brought out an old oil lamp with a wick charred at the tip. He lit it and turned the knob too far so the flame blazed harshly. Yellow, smoke-stinging eyes. Then he very slowly turned the flame down so it dwindled into a clean, steady light, no smoke, bright enough but not scorching. The teacher said, "If the wick is too long, there is smoke. Too short, it goes out. Just right, the flame lasts." So with your heart, when you learn to lower the wick just in time, you will have a light enough to carry you through night. The novice sat, watching the flame breathe evenly, as though an old lesson had reappeared in a new object. That noon in the village market there was a small fair, trays of cakes. The sound of prize draws over loudspeaker mixed with roosters crowing from someone's yard. An elderly man bumped the queue and the vendor woman got angry. Words flew like flame reacting to too much wick. The novice, standing by a stall choosing a paper fan, exhaled slowly so his own heart would not add fuel, then asked a very ordinary question, but one that opened a path. "Would you like to switch places so the scale is easier to use? Would you like to use the temple scale so you're more at ease?" That small offer made both people lower their wick. The flame quieted, and what remained was weighing and a gentle smile. In the evening the teacher opened the storehouse, showed the novice the temple's rice grinder. He spun it with strength, placing his other hand gently on the rim to keep rhythm. He said many imagine the grinder must be turned fast to be efficient, but in fact, slow and steady grinding yields fine rice. Hands don't sting. That night the novice vowed to grind tasks like grinding rice. placing hands on the grinder's rim to find rhythm and go evenly. The next day he was tested. Someone in the neighborhood sent a delayed message about compensation. People grew hot-tempered. He placed the river stone jar, invited each person to whisper a true thing into a stone so the words would soften. Then he wrote down 3 things that could be done right away with a time. Call the commune before noon. Prepare paperwork in the early afternoon. Set a meeting at dusk if details remained unclear. The rest, whatever was not in his control, he let used be the response of the other side. The whole afternoon was like the grinder spinning evenly. At the end, no one's voice was ragged from arguing, though not everything was solved. That night, he placed hand on chest and recognized the flame in his heart was not bursting as before, but steady, like an oil lamp with the wick trimmed properly. Then came a day of persistent rain and a biting north wind. The kitchen smelled smoky. Some neighborhood children took refuge indoors. One child brought a small drum, beating erratic rhythms. The noise jarred. The novice sat down, placed hand on the drum skin, not to silence, only to touch enough so the off-beat would soften. Then taught the child to beat in rhythm with footsteps. 1, 2, 3, pause. When there's a beat to stand on, even the misbeat becomes manageable. Laughter returned light as fog mist. He realized many sufferings are just drums beaten at wrong places. The healing hand is the one that touches just enough to bring back pattern. In the afternoon after rain, the teacher took him to the riverside pier where the ferryman still moors his wooden boat under a banyan tree. Water rose near the edge. The boat's sides trembled with the waves. The ferryman said, "If you tie the boat in the right place, you need fewer ropes. You need one firm loop and a direction sheltered from wind." The teacher looked at the novice without speaking more. The novice understood. The anchor in your life are the appointments you kept, the true sentences you wrote, the times you placed your hand on chest. With anchors, even a night of wind can pass without shipwreck. Another morning, after the rice fields had shed all seed, leaving stiff stubble and the scent of straw in the earth, he went with the teacher to visit a cobbler at the edge of the village. The man was stitching a schoolgirl's shoe sole. Said, "If your thread is too tight it tears the leather loose. It slips." The skillful stitcher is one who hears the tiny pull of the needle. Who knows when to pause half a beat before pulling again? The novice smiled because he felt he was being taught one more letter of gentle discipline. Back at the temple he tried applying it to a difficult matter. An old acquaintance sent a letter chiding him for not keeping in touch. The novice's first impulse was a long list of reasons, but he lowered his wick, wrote a very short honest sentence, "I forgot, and I am sorry. Let's talk tonight," then called at the promised time. The conversation was not a lecture, just ordinary words, but enough to reconnect. As the cold season deepened, he discovered many things do not have to be won to be at peace. They only need to be placed properly. One morning a lost puppy wandered into the courtyard, trembling and growling. He did not rush forward. He placed a bowl of water at the edge of the porch, sat back a little, exhaled slowly like pouring a cup of tea. After a while the puppy crept forward, drank, eyes less wild, and only then he offered a hand, led it gently toward the gate. He learned that love does not always need breakthrough. Love sometimes just needs a plane for the other to set down fear. Often a bowl of water and a quiet back-turned offer. That afternoon a group of young people came by to practice singing. They were all eager, tempo fast, voices loud. He asked only one small condition before singing. The group stand still for 20 beats in silence. Each place hand on chest, name an emotion, then enter into harmony. They tried. Everyone said they sang truer after, not because voices improved instantly, but because they listened to each other more clearly. Midweek he received a handwritten letter from the nurse who had brought her mother for checkups. She said her mother was still ill, but home was less chaotic because before each difficult exchange she paused, named the fear, promised a small thing with time. She enclosed a handkerchief embroidered with "Thank you" clumsy stitching but warm enough. He placed the handkerchief on the shelf of past things, wrote 3 lines as habit, what he had tried to keep, what he was afraid of, what he had taken care of. That night he lit a thin incense, letting smoke rise straight, and that evening the teacher brought a small hourglass, said, "Time is ally of the one who repeats. Each grain is a breath, a plain word, a small promise. Enough grains become a path. Do not wait for large grains, small ones, equal, will save the day." He placed the hourglass on his table whenever he felt stirred. He turned it over, finished one thing before the sand ran out. Strange thing. The inside water of his heart felt clearer once the sand had fallen. As if time helped his hands find rhythm again. By weekend, children returned to clean the courtyard. The teacher taught them to sweep along the tile lines, paths just wide enough for 2 feet. The novice followed behind, reminding the smallest child to keep the broom low. Breathe evenly. Avoid pushing too hard. When one row done, only then move to the next. Children learn rhythm by body faster than adults by thought. The courtyard gradually cleaned. Laughter rose light as thin clouds. He thought, if every home swept a narrow path each day, adults' hearts would have less mud. That night he opened his journal, and wrote 3 lines. Have seen, have named, have cared. Then added a small line of thank you for the first sick little bird, because through it this path began. He turned off the lamp at promised time, placed hand on chest to feel the rhythm, exhaled longer by half a beat like setting something heavy down. Eyes closed, he saw the gentle light of an oil lamp trimmed properly. And if you reading this midday feeling unsettled, perhaps try trimming your own wig just a little. Lower your voice in a sentence you were going to raise. Pull back from a hug that feels too tight. Take a half step back before a misunderstanding fires. Promise one small thing with time for later tonight. Drink a warm cup, so the flame in your heart smokes no more yet still burns. Because at the end, the secret the sick little bird taught is not far away. It lies in choosing softly to repeat, from blazing hurry to steady light. From wanting to win now to walking in your rhythm, and in the moment you stand still half a beat in your own place. The should have arrows drop from your hand. Muddy water starts to settle. The inner needle points north, and the rest, let the wind pass through without carrying you along. The next morning, the sky was washed clear, like a towel hung out just wrung dry. Light seeped in under the eaves so thin you could almost hear dust falling. The teacher brought an old bamboo flute, its body stained by hands and time. He did not blow immediately. He lifted the flute to his eye level, aligned the holes into a straight line, and said quietly that the flute only sings when the empty space inside is honored. If plugged too tight, no sound. If loose, it cracks. A person is like that too. You must leave room for breath to pass. Then he blew a short phrase, not high, but carrying far, touching the areca leaves just starting to yellow at the edges like a greeting. The novice listened and realized, even after many seasons of practicing small acts, there's something even more needed, something that seems like doing nothing, leaving space for breath. That midday the village had a small festival, tables full of cakes, loudspeakers calling out raffle numbers, roosters crowing from someone's yard. An elderly man stepped forward cutting the line. The vendor got angry. Voices flared like flame with too much wick. The novice, picking a paper fan stall, exhaled slowly so his own heart would not add fuel, then asked a very ordinary but opening question. Would you like to move your position so the scale is easier? Would you like to use our temple's scale to feel more at ease? The questions were small, but they eased anger. Both people lowered their flaring wick. Flame settled. What remained was weighing and a smile. In the afternoon, the teacher took him to the temple's rice mill. He turned the crank vigorously, but his other hand lightly rested on the wooden frame to keep the rhythm. Many believe you must grind fast to get done quickly, he said, but slow and steady yields fine rice. The hands don't burn. That night the novice resolved, Tomorrow I will grind tasks like rice, placing hands on the frame. Going steady. The next day he was faced with a message about delayed compensation in town. People were ready to argue. He set out the river stone jar, invited each person to whisper a true thing into a stone so words would soften. Then he wrote down 3 things that could be done right away with specific times. Call the local council before noon. Gather documents in early afternoon. Meet at dusk if still uncertain. The rest, what belonged to others' decisions, he let go. The afternoon flowed more evenly. Some chairs were missing, some food sparse, but voices were less sharp. That evening, he placed his hand on his chest and felt the flame inside not roaring but gentle, like an oil lamp with wick trimmed just right. Then came a day of steady rain and biting wind. The kitchen smoke thickened. Children rushed in for shelter. One child had a little drum, beating out of step rhythms. The novice sat down next to the drum, placed his hand lightly on it, not to silence but to touch just enough so the Ms. beat would soften. Then he taught the child to beat in rhythm to footsteps. 1, 2, 3, pause. When there is a beat to stand on, the offbeats neither shame nor break the song. Laughter came back, light as vapor. He saw many sufferings or drums struck in wrong places. Healing is the hand that steadies enough for rhythm's return. In the afternoon, after the rain, the teacher led him to the riverside pier. The water was lower than weeks before. The boat anchored under banyan trees. The boat's sides quivered with the lapping of water. The ferryman said, "Tie the boat in the right spot. You don't need many lines. One strong loop, one direction sheltered from wind." The teacher looked at him without saying more. The novice understood. The anchors in your life are the appointments kept. The true sentences written. The times your hand placed on your chest. With anchors, your boat in heart is not swept away when wind shifts. Another morning, after the harvest fields had shed their grain, leaving hard stubble and the scent of straw in the dirt, they visited a cobbler in the village. The man was sewing a schoolgirl's shoe sole. He said, "If the thread is too tight, it tears the leather. Too loose, it slips." The skilled stitcher hears the tiny drag of the needle, knows when to pause half a beat before pulling again. The novice smiled. This was another lesson in gentle discipline. Back at the temple, when an old friend sent a letter complaining of neglect, the novice's first thought was to list reasons, but he shortened his wick, wrote one short honest sentence. "I forgot. I am sorry. Promised to call in the evening." When the time came, he did. The talk was not perfect, but enough to reconnect. As cold deepened, he saw more clearly that peace is not always victory, but proper placing. One morning a small lost puppy wandered into the courtyard. Trembling and frightened, he did not rush toward it. He placed a bowl of water at edge, sat back a little, exhaled slowly as pouring tea. Later the puppy came, drank, calmed. Only then did he offer hand, guided to the gate. He learned that love does not always have to do something dramatic. Sometimes it matters to offer ground where fear can rest. That afternoon, a group of young people came to practice singing. The novice asked just one small condition. Before singing, all stand still for 20 internal beats. Put hand on chest, name an emotion, then begin in harmony. They tried. Everyone said afterward they sang more true, not because of sudden skill, but because they heard one another. Midweek he received a handwritten letter from the nurse who had brought her mother for checkups. Mother was still sick, but home was calmer, because before each difficult conversation she paused. Named fear, made small promise with time. She included a handkerchief embroidered with "Thank you," imperfect stitching but warm. The novice placed it on the shelf of past things, wrote 3 lines as usual. What he tried to keep, what he feared, what he cared for. That night the teacher brought a small hourglass, said, "Time is ally of those who repeat. Each grain is a breath, a plain word, a small promise. Enough grains form a path. Do not wait for big grains, small ones, equal, will save the day." He placed the hourglass on the table whenever he felt stirred. He flipped it, finished one task before the sand out. He noticed his inner water cleared when the sand had fallen, as if time had helped his hands find rhythm again. By the weekend, the temple opened gates for children to clean the courtyard. The teacher taught them to sweep along tile lines, paths just wide for 2 feet. The novice followed behind, reminding the youngest child to keep the broom low. Breathe evenly, not push too hard. Finish one row before starting the next. Children learn rhythm by body faster than adults by intellect. The courtyard gradually cleaned. Laughter rose soft like thin clouds. That night he opened his have journal and wrote 3 lines. Have seen, have named, have cared, plus a small thank you to the sick little bird for showing the way this path began. He turned off the lamp at promised hour, placed hand on chest to hear rhythm, exhaled longer by half a beat like setting something heavy down. Eyes closed, he saw the gentle light of an oil lamp trimmed properly. If you are reading this in the middle of a noisy day, try trimming your wick a bit. Lower your voice in a sentence you would raise. Pull back from hugging too tight. Take a half step before speaking in misunderstanding. Then make one small promise with a time for tonight. Drink a warm cup. Let the flame in your heart stop smoking but still burn. Because in the end, the secret the sick little bird shared is not far away. It lies in choosing to dim the rush for steady light. Choosing to match rhythm instead of forcing wins. And in the moment you stand still half a beat right where you are. Arrows of should have fall from your hand. Muddy water settles. Your inner compass points north. And the rest, let the wind blow through without carrying you away.